Someone make it make sense.
Probably a couple.
What is up, party squirrels? How are you guys doing? We do have some new court filings today before we get into the rest of the testimony from day 19. We're also having more thunderstorms here again, but classic here for North Carolina in the springtime. So, okay, so we have, let's see here, for docket number 693. If y'all hear some thunder, just ignore that. It's just, what's happening outside. It's pretty loud inside. Okay, so we have emergency request for review per supplemental order regarding the buffer zone. Welcome, Iris. Happy to see you as well. Every day this case brings a new surprise. Absolutely couldn't agree more. That is definitely very true. And also welcome to Gwennon. How's life in the UK, guys? Couldn't agree more. Burgess is a disaster. Yep, accurate. Okay, so now comes Erica Walsh, a citizen of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and pursuant to the court's May 15th, 2025 supplemental order regarding the buffer zone, requests immediate review of a restriction imposed by the Massachusetts State Police. The court's order says, in relevant part, any person whose activity has been restricted by an officer enforcing this order may request review by a judge of the Superior Court, which request shall be heard as expeditiously as possible. Specifically, Walsh was arrested for reportedly trespassing despite being on a public sidewalk merely for wearing a sweatshirt that says criminals control Norfolk County. Walsh's First Amendment protected activity was unlawfully restricted. Taking action against her merely for the contents of her sweatshirt, which did not interfere with the administration of justice, nor influence any trial participant, nor intended to do so, is a blatant violation of rights. Now, the reason it says this is because in the orders, which we've previously covered, literally that is what it states, that you have to be wearing something, right, or holding up a sign that interferes with the administration of justice or influences a trial participant or intends to do so, which I have complained about previously as being complete and abject speculation, right? Because how can somebody read someone's mind as to what they are intending to do? So she's laying that out here. The trespass statute is a pretext. She has a lawful right to be, or had a lawful right to be present. She was arrested where she stood allegedly trespassing. And guys, we do also have a command for the weather. I'll just give y'all an example here. So there's a lovely high def picture. In light of the foregoing, immediate review is required. Why does it say light rain? It's thunderstorming. Anyway, okay, so next we have docket 694. So Jason Grant's emergency request for review per supplemental order regarding the buffer zone. So this is the first paragraph being exactly the same. Purportedly pursuant to the second buffer zone order, notwithstanding the supplemental order on May 16, 2025, the Massachusetts State Police threatened Mr. Grant for this sign. So it's a Bible verse here, 2 Corinthians. Now the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. Wow. Yeah. Jason Grant sought to stand across the street from the Norfolk Superior Courthouse holding an American flag and a Bible verse in there. It quotes it. The Massachusetts State Police denied him access to a traditional public forum. Wow. Applying the court's buffer zone order to now prohibit purely patriotic and or religious speech. Wow. Okay, then we have more. We've got next up 695. So Thomas DeRosiers, hopefully I'm saying that correctly, emergency request for review, again,
The first paragraph being the same. On May 19th, DeRossi was peacefully filming the exterior of the Norfolk Superior Cross from across Pearl Street. Here's a picture. One Massachusetts state trooper said, okay, as to where DeRossi was standing. Nevertheless, Massachusetts State Trooper Sergeant Michael Hardman suddenly looks like the spinning wheel just happened there. Probably is due to the weather. Injuring him, and there he has his arm in a sling, looks like, guys, and dragged him across High Street, now catty corner from the courthouse. The injury required medical attention. Wow. Hardman had no lawful reason. I mean, there will probably be a lawsuit then if that's the case. Hardman had no lawful reason or probable cause, yet he's emboldened by the buffer zone order. Even though Judge Cannoni issued a recent supplemental order, that supplement does not restrain Hardman, and no other state trooper interceded to tell Hardman he was out of line. The state police have essentially taken and communicated their position that nothing has changed. Hardman decided he could still, under the pretext of the buffer zone, assault and injure DeRossi, even though he was where he had been told he could be and was not on any path used to enter the courthouse, nor was he protesting or otherwise influencing any witness or juror, let alone attempting to do so. Wow. Oh yeah, I saw that clip as well. Vinny shopping for a purple tie. I love Vinny. I freaking love Vinny. Oh, and that's wait, here's the Eureka. Okay. This is the last page here. Oh, that was the last page. Okay, so there you go. So that's the last. Let me just double check. It's the last one. Yep, that's the last one. Okay, so that's of the recent filings there, guys. That's the last page there. So, I mean, if it's true that this dude got an injured arm, do this, like, that is insane, right? Like, that is absolutely beyond. And there will be a lawsuit if that can be proven up. Holy mackerel. Is that a pumpkin and a scarecrow behind him? Because that would be interesting, right? Because, like, what is that, Halloween decorations? But, I mean, I don't know. It says May 19th. I don't know. I don't know the area. Maybe there's something that has, like, year-round decorations. Anywho, so y'all see what I'm saying? That's funny. Okay, so that's the first thing. So next, though, as promised, we're going to take a look. So take a look. It's in a book. Okay, we were talking about the whole situation, whether or not there was a voir dire. This was from like 2 live streams ago for Shanon Burgess. And what we ended up kind of figuring out was that we didn't recall them asking for a voir dire like way ahead of time when they asked for the other voir dires. But of course, they did ask for a voir dire last week at the end of the week, and it was denied. But I was just searching to see, was there any other filings regarding Mr. Burgess from like months ago or whatever. And I did find a very interesting one that we're going to take a look at right now. So, and it does also include a CV. Okay, let me just pull this up and just unshare, reshare. Yeah, the quality of the pictures is very much awful. Welcome, James. What's Bud Light? What's that a reference to? Okay. So this is 392, docket 392. I don't have a date, but this is from months ago. All right. So this was what we had from previous filings regarding Mr. Burgess. And so and of course, we covered this whenever this came out, but just to go over it now. So Commonwealth's notice of scheduling reassembly and testing of the defendant's Lexus telematics system. So now comes the Commonwealth through its expert, Shanon Burgess. Footnote 1. CV is attached, people. In the above captioned matter, and respectfully provides notice to the defense of this honorable court that it tends to engage in further testing of the telematics system. Mr. Burgess has opined that significant data was likely not acquired during the chip-off procedure, likely caused by programmer's error. So again, I'm not going to read all of it because we have covered this before, but just to go through some of the key highlights here, and then we'll get to that CV as attached. So there's Maggie Gaffney. Okay, defense expert. Interesting, because I looked her up and it looked like, I mean, she works for the Massachusetts State Police, but it does ring a bell that the defense had an expert from previous that was MSP or formerly MSP or something. But when I looked her up, it said MSP. So on December 1st, 2023, the defense expert Maggie Gaffney performed a procedure known as a chip-off, a digital data extraction and analysis technique that involved physically, welcome Angel also, by the way, physically removing memory chips from the Lexus's infotainment and telematics system. What was the deal with the Bud Light, by the way, James? Okay, oops, I can't type. So this procedure was observed by Massachusetts State Police Trooper Nicholas Garino and the Commonwealth expert A.G. Speak, who authored a report detailing the process and his findings, footnote 3. Oh, see Exhibit C, okay. While a chip off had the potential to be destructive due to the technique required to remove the chips, in this case, memory chips associated with the infotainment and telematics modules from the defendant's Lexus were not destroyed and have, along with the infotainment system, telematics system, and Lexus vehicle remained secure. Mr. Burgess, through his training experience, believes that evidence acquired in the chip off was incomplete and that more data was not acquired and exists. Da, da, da. And there's Burla. If a vehicle is equipped with navigation, the system can also record geolocation data in the form of track logs. Footnote 4. The telematics module also has the ability or capability to store track logs. Navigation events can be inferred from the start and stop points of time-based tracking. Can they, though? I mean, because it was really a hot mess in my view. In addition, the modules may contain device connections to the vehicle, and separately, Wi-Fi connections to the module obtained and stored as the vehicle travels. Welcome on in, Meg. Why would I represent Bud Light, though? I don't understand. Oh yeah, that's definitely true. Definitely true. Meg says, chip off is when you can't eat just one. That's really funny. I don't think any of you guys were here for when we covered the Ezra McCandless trial, but I really loved the prosecutor in that case. Shout out to Mr. Oh my God, last name starts with a D. Last name starts with a D. I'll think of it when I'm not trying to think of it. But when they talked about chip on or chip off or something regarding chips in that case, he was really funny. He was like, so whenever they had the first person introducing the concept of a chip to the jury in that trial, he was like, so chip, he was like, the way he said it was really funny. I'm not going to do it justice. But he was like, is that like a potato chip? It doesn't sound funny when I say it, but it's really funny when he did it. Anyway, he was awesome. So, oh, James says he doesn't know either. That's funny. Okay. Well, perfect. Then none of us know. Excellent. Classic King there. Okay. So, Mr. Burgess identified that 2 potential data bearing components were removed from the MMU and identified a 64 megabyte flash memory component. We heard a lot about that. And there's the 8 megabytes. There's that whole thing. We heard about that again in the testimony on cross. And there's these microchips. Based on these likely deficiencies in acquisition, Mr. Burgess has recommended a review of the chips that have previously been removed and subsequently a reattachment of the chips to the board in the defendant's vehicle. Given that the testing is potentially destructive, the Commonwealth is providing formal notice to the defense and an opportunity for the defense to employ its own expert to be present during the different stages of further testing. Yeah, we all remember how that went, guys? Jesus, empty promises. The first stage of testing would occur in Texas, and subsequent testing procedures would continue in Massachusetts. Megabyte, megateent, megapint. Again, references to Debbie Heard. The testing is necessary and could produce relevant and material corroborating evidence for the trial. It may be inculpatory or exculpatory. So here they're just trying to make the case that the data would be necessary. Okay, so now though, here we go, his CV, guys. So it does say currently pursuing. Now, was this, I can't recall because there were so many fake degrees. Was this one of the degrees that didn't exist at the school? I can't even remember. Yeah, if I recall correctly, though, this one did not exist. It was like, there was something about, wasn't this one of the ones that didn't exist? But at least it does say currently pursuing, although that still is BS because, as we know, it was 17 years in the making, right? There's his certifications. Now, one of the things we were going to look at, was there anything about, like, there was a question on redirect about hacking, like hacking certifications. So, and that was a weird question from Mr. Brennan, because it was like, why would he ask that, right? Unless he thought that he had that certification. But so that's what I'm looking at here. And it doesn't look like there's anything on here on the certifications that would indicate being a hacking specialist. So I don't know where he got that question from. Let's read his work experience. Mr. Burgess is an expert with nearly a decade of experience in data acquisition, recovery, and forensic investigations. Good morning, Blackwater. He leads day-to-day operations and oversees. We've got lots of friends joining us right now over there in the UK. Love it. He leads day-to-day operations and oversees the digital forensic services offered to clients, including data acquisition, forensic analysis, expert testimony, and forensic consultation. Mr. Burgess has forensically investigated litigated cases over 9 years, including accident reconstruction, distracted driving, insurance fraud, criminal investigations, harassment, IP theft, and many other issues involving digital devices. I wonder if the IP theft is where Hank got it, like, mixed that up with hacking. I don't know. Who knows what goes on in his head. Welcome, Kat Randall. He's a frequent speaker at industry events, published in professional publications, and constantly sharing insightful content, oh my God, on topics relating to digital forensics and cybersecurity. Mr. Burgess regularly conducts research and performs advanced data extraction techniques, including forensic chip swaps, chip off, in-system programming, and other nonsense. There's the presentations. It says he's done. Still not seeing anything involving like hacking on here though. Kia. These are publications, I suppose. Continuing education and training. Magnet User Summit, Event Data Recovery, I guess. Again, still nothing with hacking though, which is weird. So, oh, there's hacking. There it is, computer hacking forensic investigator. Weird though. It's like he somehow like zeroed in on that one bit where it references hacking out of all this and asked about it, and he was like, no, that's not current. At least he didn't lie about that. I mean, this is crazy, right? Now, here's this email from October 10th from Tolly. Woo! A protocol for infotainment data acquisition is below. There's the expansion. Now, I don't know how much of this is, I mean, this is what came up in the trial. I'm just seeing if there's anything in here that wasn't implemented and would be interesting. Okay, so here we go. Resoldering and reinstallation. There we go. Resolder the memory components. So they're like, we're enlisting you to do this type of stuff. Y'all, look at this. I guess that's like a chip with a car. Summary. Can I hack? No. My services were requested by Nicholas Grino of the Massachusetts State Police. The request was for observation of an infotainment and telematics module chip-off from a defense expert on a case he was involved in. In addition, I was asked to review data from the extractions and determine if there were any GPS data points located in the raw data. That's what he was acquired for. On December 1st, I arrived at the barracks, There was the vehicle. I photographed the vehicle. There's some pictures. This is interesting because remember how much he tried to throw her under the bus, or did throw her under the bus ostensibly? Okay, during the entire forensic process, I found that Mrs. Gaffney's techniques and methods of handling, removing memory chips from the printed circuit board, and reading the data with specialized equipment were all done in accordance with forensically sound practices and procedures. The equipment utilized was from Detective Garino's forensic lab, as well as items brought in by Mrs. Gaffney. Detective Garino's lab is set up with the proper equipment. The data extractions that were pulled from the memory chips were provided to Detective Garino and I by Mrs. Gaffney. They were confirmed to be the same images. Here's the chips, chipperoo, expansion scenario. Words. Yep. All right. Check. Got that. Some more of this stuff. Oh, look, it actually, that's so funny. It actually says expansion on it. Hilarious. Analysis. I was able to view the 3 chip images on my forensic machine. My forensic machine is a forensic drone running Windows 11 Pro. There were no issues noted. I utilized several programs to view data from the images provided. The programs ranged I was asked to find any evidence of GPS data inside the images that were downloaded from the infotainment and telematics module. After a lengthy review, utilizing a combination of the aforementioned programs, I was able to look at any GPS data. So basically, so here's the deal. I was actually asking this question on one of the recent live streams. I was like, I couldn't remember if they actually got anything new from the chip on, right? This confirms. The point of the chip on was to try, like, who knows? No, regardless of what they said, it's clear that what they were hoping to get was GPS from the vehicle, right? That's what they were hoping for. And this confirms didn't locate any. So basically the chip on was pointless. That's what that is. I was unable to locate any GPS with data within the data sets. Angel, are you speaking German? Are you guys all speaking German? What are you guys saying? Okay, conclusion. I advised Detective Green of my findings and provided him with this report. There were no additional reports or summaries generated from the software programs listed. There you go. All right. So now, what I want to do before we jump into the rest of the testimony from day 19 is I want to review a couple things from day 18 here. As per usual, as I'm doing timestamp, I always notice things. Okay, so okay. Oh, cool. So first thing, okay. Some of this stuff I was hoping we get clarified more on the rest of cross from today, and it didn't really happen the way I was hoping for. But let's just talk about some of the other things that are still pending, that are still, to me and probably to the jury, outstanding issues. So first we have this whole deal with the clock.
Sure. So when a text stream event happens.
So again, just to reiterate, this is from day 18, but this is on direct examination. These were some of the things that were like, what? WTF moments.
There is, when that trigger is met, there are certain data parameters or data types that are recorded for a specific time frame.
in this case, how many of those events were you looking at?
Just one.
Okay, putting it down, bumping it down to 1.25 as we're getting into the heart of the issue here.
When you mentioned time, I want to have you explain to us a little bit about time.
Yeah.
You said there's a running clock. Can you explain that in a little more detail and simply what that means?
Sure. So in what's recorded within the take stream events, I'll refer to as a running clock. Essentially what it is when the vehicle's powered on, this clock starts to run and it counts seconds from power on. So when you press the ignition on, this clock starts. And when there is a take stream event that occurs within that cycle or within that ignition on, that is recorded as the time that trigger occurred.
Does that give an actual time, like when you look at your watch or you look at your cell phone?
It does not give an actual time, yeah.
No actual time. And then we have more of this wording. When you involved yourself in your studies.
There was not.
When you involved yourself in your study.
It makes it sound like when you involved yourself in your study, it sounds like a kid doing homework, right? Versus like, being hired as an expert for a murder case. It's just it makes it sound like it's a hobby, right? Or extracurricular. It's very odd to me. And this ends up coming up later as well with one of the questions asked on cross. So we double checked the actual time versus the running clock. Still didn't make any sense, bits or bytes. And then we go here. So one of the questions, shout out to Needs and Z's for this, that we were talking about this whole thing, the local time versus the UTC time. So check it out here. So this whole bit, right? Because basically this picture is taken during the day. Now, what we talked about before, and this was really puzzling, and so when I was doing timestamps, I made sure to see if they clarified this at all. So it's in military time, right? And it would be like 9:48 p.m. is what I'm told. And now it's daytime, so that's weird. But also the thing that bugged me was local time in Massachusetts would be Eastern time, which is the same as me, but in Texas, which is I believe where this is, right? It would be UTC, I believe it would be UTC -6. So the local time, and regardless, in other words, regardless of whatever, the local time and the UTC time shouldn't be the same unless they're in wherever UTC 0 is. I don't even know where that is, somewhere in Europe, right? Does anybody know? But anyway, this makes literally no sense. So they actually talk about this here.
Particular clock system?
Sure. So that's measured by our reference equipment. So we're using what's called VBox equipment to capture these videos. So here, that local time is actually UTC time. So it's not actually local time for this area. So that could be a little, that could be an error in how that's reporting. But essentially what we're seeing is.
That's the explanation. Help me, guys. Help me. What?
Our reference equipment. So we're using what's called VBox equipment to capture these videos. So here, that local time is actually UTC time. So it's not actually local time for this area. So that could be a little, that could be an error in how that's reporting. But essentially.
What? I listened to this when I was doing timestamps. I listened to this many times, and it didn't make any more sense. It made less sense, and it's making less sense again now. Because I was wondering, like, okay. As Mr. Alessi so astutely pointed out with so many different examples, the whole thing is the timeline and the accuracy of time. Now, the only thing that I, would have liked to, one of the things I would have liked to have seen as cross resumed today and then on recross, and I don't recall it coming up, was a question about this. Like, this was never followed up on any, like, again, this is from D18 on direct. This was never followed up on, to my recollection, by anybody for the rest of his testimony. And it's like, what?
These videos. So here, that local time is actually UTC time. So it's not actually local time for this area. So that could be a little, that could be an error in how that's reporting. But essentially what we're seeing is the infotainment system is powering on at that exact time of 21:48:08.
Wow.
And this was for power on. Can we have number 31, please? How's this?
Angel has a question. What other creators or channels do I watch or recommend? So the thing is that when you're live streaming a lot, you don't really have as much time to watch other creators. But like, I will just say that, like, one of my favorite channels, especially when I had more time before I was live streaming as much, and I was like in chat, as they say. I love STS Surviving the Survivor. Shout out to Joel, COE, and Spacey. And I love what they do there is very different because they have different guests on, best guests, right? And get different perspectives. And it's very different than a lot of what we're used to seeing in the realm of whether it be law, tube, or true crime, what have you. So love STS. But as far as like right now, like, with limited time, like it's usually going to be Runkle and Lawyer, I try to catch some EDB as well. But like she's streaming this trial all day, every day, which like I'm also doing, whether it's live or after the fact. So it's just hard to like, it's only 24 hours in a day. But I love Laura, I love Runkle. Oh, Defense Diaries, also love Defense Diaries. There's definitely, there's like other channels that I love, but in terms of what I actually have time, what I have time to watch, whether it's on Replay Crew or sometimes pop in the chat, and as far as like other squirrel friends, like for example, I'll always pop in on Kane's channel when Kane goes live. If I'm available, I'll pop in Kane's, and other people. Trying to think, but like, yeah, those are, I love law. Uncivil Law, also love Uncivil Law. If I have time, I pop in for him as well. So yeah, I would say that like to me, what I would call like the law tube OGs, right? Like EDB, Laura, Uncivil, Runkle, Rob, Law and Lumber. Those are like still like my main like YouTube channels ever since I discovered them in like 2020. And yeah, of course, Defense Diaries. I discovered Defense. I think actually they maybe weren't even around yet in 2020. So anyway, I discovered them like later. I also love Andrea. Yep. I also love Andrea. Thank you for that. Yeah, I do also love Andrea. I do pop in for that when I can. I love Andrea, and she was as far as like Delphi, her and Bob were like were just like completely essential for following that. And Andrea took such detailed notes. It was the best you could do, in my opinion, besides since for not being there and not being able to watch it, obviously. Let me see if I missed any other things here. Yeah, I don't know if those are any new channels to you, but you're very welcome. Also, for anyone who's interested, we do have Iowa, one of our school friends, also has an awesome channel that they stream 24/7, 365 backyard footage, and it's really cute. And it's so I put shout out to Iowa's Backyard Cam. So definitely check them out. Iowa Backyard Cam is the channel. And also for anyone who's interested and hasn't heard this, my brother is a professional storm chaser and has an awesome channel where he does live streams and videos. He's actually been featured on Ryan Hall, y'all. He's also all the time on like all the different news stations. Like oftentimes they use his footage. If you ever see it saying like courtesy of Live Storms Media or Dan Whitaker, that's my brother. Some of you guys may have seen him and didn't know it was him, but I think that hopefully you should put a link in the chat as well for you guys that are interested. If you guys watch him, you'll be like, oh my God, they're totally related. It's just really funny. He does an awesome job. He's amazing. Shout out to my brother, Mant, as I call him. Ever since we were little, I called him Mant. So yeah, he's awesome as well. And yeah. Speaking of Andrew Myers, I didn't know who he was, but Twiz did an interview on that channel, and Twiz has, I guess, emailed him and asked permission just because that's how I want to, do my due diligence. so that we can, it's Twiz is positive. He'll say it's fine. But basically, we want to watch Twiz's interview, right, on this channel. So with Twiz. So that will happen here soon whenever we get a confirmation that from Mr. Myers that is okay. We will do that. Speaking of that, Carl Steinbeck. Yeah. And speaking of, it's funny, speaking of STS, right? Carl Steinbeck is an OG STSer, especially as it pertains to the Adelsons. Here's what I will say. Like, y'all know that I've been covering the Adelsons, but STS was like OG on the case for the Adelsons, right? And Carl Steinbeck has been on the show for years now, and he was known for having this thing, and it was like this list of all the reasons why Wendy is going to be getting indicted. I couldn't agree more. And the list kept getting longer. And so they had this ongoing series. There she is, by the way, Fievel. They had this ongoing series, and it was like, I can't remember how many reasons. Just for the sake of the example, let's say 50 reasons. So like 50 reasons why Wendy Adelson will be indicted. And then it was like next week it would be 100 reasons why Wendy Adelson is going to be indicted. And then next month, 200 reasons. And it just keeps growing. And it's really, really, really funny. So he used to come on there. I don't know if he still does, because again, I just don't have time to like follow everything. But he used to come on there regularly, and every time the list kept getting longer, and it was really funny. They're coming for you, Fievel, as I always say. My mods, I only have the one mod, as you know, as you guys know, which I don't know where he is. He was just texting me not that long ago. Twiz, where are you? Yeah, I love Runkle and Rob. Yeah, Runkle and Rob. I love it. I freaking love it. They're awesome. And I got word from Miss Mandy, who's a producer for Uncivil, that Uncivil had said something like he wanted to collaborate with me, which, I mean, I can't for the life of me understand why anyone would want to do that, but who knows if that'll happen. But just speaking of Uncivil, as we were a second ago, that would be awesome. I mean, he's been in the chat numerous times. So yeah. So anyway, let's get Fievel off the screen here. All right. So that just doesn't make any sense, though, right? The local time versus the UTC time. So that was the explanation we were offered, and then that doesn't come back up again. Now, the other thing that's really frustrating is the thing about the phone. All right.
I'll give your opinions and explain to the jury. You mentioned the word variance between different items. I don't think you used the word items. You said something else.
Sure. So that's going to be the clock variance between different devices. So in this instance, what we're referring to is the difference in the clocks of the Lexus module and an iPhone. So we would not expect those clocks to be perfectly synced. Typically what we see, and is what is generally accepted, is a clock variance of up to 60 seconds. And that is because when you think about when you're looking at your radio and you're looking at the clock, it's representing to you the hours and the minutes. It's not representing the seconds. So again, it's accurate. Its function is to be accurate to the minute, but its function is not to be accurate to the second.
Is a variance between different devices?
Now there, he has to be talking about the car, because as we know, the cell phones, even though when we look at it, it's not going to have to the second. But we know from all the Celebrate reports that we've all seen that it gives you hour, minute, second, and like millisecond, right? Which again, the question I keep saying is like, what the heck is going on here? And why did they try to argue that both were off? The Lexus is off, but also the phone is off. It just doesn't make any fucking sense. And then here's this big question here where, in my opinion, Hank Brennan let me be clear, knowingly elicits false testimony. All right, check it out.
Did something compel you to further your study and compare the Lexus clock information on those two text stream events, the 3-point turn and the backing maneuver, to a different device?
Yes, there was a claim of attempting to.
Sorry, that's part one, but there's a second part. Where is it? Here it is. Here it is, right here. Okay.
When you decided to delve deeper into this, was that on your own initiative, or were you requested to do it?
That was on my own initiative.
Again, that was on my own initiative. He asked, the thing is it wasn't an open-ended question. Brennan asks the question, leading as fuck, as always, and listen.
Was that on your own initiative, or were you requested to do it?
That was on my own initiative.
Again with this. All right, now let's hear where this comes up on cross, because to me, this is wild. Okay.
You said on direct examination, sir, that you prepared your May 8th report on your own initiative. Those were your words on your direct testimony, correct?
Correct.
I'm going to read the first line of your May 8th, 2025 report.
Oh God.
Do you have it in front of you, sir?
I do. Yes.
It starts, Dear Mr. Brennan. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
Pursuant to your request.
Oh God.
That's a request you're referring to of Mr. Brennan, correct?
Correct.
I have completed an additional analysis.
There it is. Pursuant to your request. So those are some of the things I wanted to circle back up on from day 18, which was wild. Okay, I'm almost on the timestamps, as you guys can see for this live stream. For anyone who hasn't seen this, by the way, you've heard me talk about it, and I'm not kidding when I say I do very specific timestamps. Since I have it up here, I may as well show y'all. So I do this for numerous reasons, because first of all, some of the live streams are really, really, really long. And I know for me, it helps to have timestamps, especially because sometimes if you catch something and it's happening live, regardless, and you start anywhere in the video, right? And then you go do something else, like for me, I'm whatever, going live, teaching lesson, whatever, and you come back to it, it doesn't save your spot, right? If this live stream has ended, it's like, it just puts you right back at the beginning for one thing, right? So the timestamps help you find where you were at if you saw part of it, but not all of it. Also, obviously, if you're looking for certain pieces of information. So hopefully it's helpful to you guys on Replay Crew, but it's always helpful to me because how many times have I been live streaming when I'm like, oh, what was that one thing that happened that one day? I'm like, oh, I can find it literally because I timestamped it. I mean, like, this is probably certifiably insane when you look at this, right? Because I'm not kidding when I say detailed timestamps. So like, look at the size of the bars there, right? Like, it can't even show all of them because there's so many back to back, but it's, sometimes it's like funny things. Like, for example, I have it timestamped when I showed the, where is it? The Judge Bev doppelganger. Where is it? Yeah. So like, for example, like it can be funny things.
Mary is referenced.
Like,
Okay. One that was about
so there's Judge Bev's doppelganger that I made. So it could be funny things like that, but also things that I think are especially important or just noteworthy, and things that I think are especially important, I tend to put in caps so that they stand out either for y'all on Replay Crew or for me when I'm looking for things, right? Things that are especially momentous, I tend to put in all caps or whatever. And whenever anything's a quote, I put it in quotes. Now on the scrolly bar, it doesn't show the quote signs, but if you go to the description, you'll see the quotes. But anyway, I put quotes in quotes always, just so you guys know. Oh, you can see it there. There's some quotes. Sometimes it doesn't show them. I don't know why, but sometimes it does. There you go. So anyway, just very specific timestamps. So for any of you guys who haven't checked out Replay Crew life here on this channel, you guys can look forward to very specific timestamps. Okay, so now with that, we're going to head on over to day 19. So we covered the first portion before lunch live. So now we're going to cover the second half, because what I had said was, I was like, well, if they call Judd Welcher, I'll try to go live again. But I thought to myself, if they have Burgess on a longer redirect and recross, they're probably going to call. I literally said they're probably going to call another like forensic analyst, and sure enough, that's what they did. Kind of makes sense, because I think what'll happen is tomorrow they didn't finish with her, right? So tomorrow they'll have her. If you're the Commonwealth, right? So here's the plan for the rest of the week, right? Because tomorrow's Wednesday. On Thursday, they have a half day. And then there's no court on Friday. And I don't believe there's court on Monday also. So if you're the Commonwealth, it would be ideal to finish your case in chief before the break. And you would want to, and it would make sense if you're the Commonwealth to call Judd Welcher last, because in their mind, he's going to be their strongest witness to tie it all together, right? So that way if you're the Commonwealth, you want to leave the jury over the break feeling really strongly in your favor, like in the Commonwealth's favor, like pondering how much they think she hit him or whatever. You know what I mean? Like you want to finish strong and then give them that to take with them over the break. So it does make sense. They called the forensic analyst for the class and whatnot. And then she's going to finish in the morning, and then it'll be Welcher, right? Unless they call someone else before Welcher, but
I would imagine he'll be last and he'll finish out the week and then they will rest their case in chief. And then I would imagine again, after the break, they will pick up with the defense case in chief. Meg's going to browse for a bit. What are you browsing for? It is Memorial Day, I believe. Don't quote me on that. So we're going to try to make it less boring than maybe it was. The other thing, again, the benefit, right, of doing this after the fact versus live is we can watch it on faster speed and go past the sidebars and whatnot. And that helps a lot, right? So, I mean, this, for however boring it was live, it should hopefully be less boring now. Okay, so let me just find, where's the lunch break? That's the lunch break. Okay. So it's not going to be that much. So here we go. This is where they pick up after the lunch break, and we're going to watch it on 1.5. And we're going to try to make it less boring. All right.
All right, Mr. Brennan, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Sir, when I asked you about your first report regarding the protocol, you told us October 10th, followed by your supplement on the 17th. You did not remember the day that you first received any information offered by Mr. DeSorga. Is there a document that may refresh your memory?
Yes, there is.
May I approach?
Yes.
Thank you. I want you to read this. I just want you to look at it. You can look at any part of it.
Okay.
And that you saw any information provided by Mr. DeSorga?
Yes, it does.
And when was that?
November 7th of 2024.
Before or after you recognized the Megabyte
That would
oversight?
be after.
Oh my God. And he got it wrong, Hank. I mean, not surprising. The other thing is that this whole thing was so weird with the Mr. DeSorgo's thing because, like, that doesn't happen. Like, he hadn't presented it, so it didn't make any sense. I just wanted to hear Hank mess this up.
You recognized the Megabyte oversight?
That would be after.
Are you Elaine? Megabit, Megabyte, Megateen, Megapint. Where's my Elaine thing? Hold on. We have Elaine's spirit animal, which is the, we decided she would be an ostrich. And she's being chased, by the way, by the lolly bird. See, the lolly bird is chasing her. We also have this one, as y'all can see. So we got the lolly bird chasing the road trip crew and Amber Heard on the lowest of the totem pole here, chasing everyone. And they're all trying to get away from her. So there you go.
Sure.
I want to go back to where we were at before we went to lunch. You had described two text stream events.
Oh, yeah,
I
I can bump it back up. I just wanted to hear him say I just wanted to hear him mispronounce those.
focus on the first text stream event, and that is the text stream event relative to the 3-point turn.
Okay.
You had described that there was a timestamp 154. Just to reacquaint us, can you very briefly tell us the significance of 154?
Sure. So GPS point 154 is a GPS point that occurs just before the 3-point turn starts.
And why is it important to identify when that turn starts and when it ends?
Sure. So what we're specifically looking at comparing is the end of the 3-point turn. That's going to be the text stream event ending, which is near the end of the 3-point turn, as well as the end of the 3-point turn as recorded in Mr. O'Keefe's iPhone.
Was it important to identify the beginning and end of that event?
I mentioned this, I wasn't this morning. I was like, don't tell me they're now trying to say this whole thing with the 3-point turn, that this is all new from last, different from the first trial. Like, with what, if I'm gleaning it correctly from this whole thing with 3-point turn, what they're then suggesting is that John O'Keefe was still in the car during the 3-point turn, which is wild because how are they going to reconcile that? Like, that disputes so much of the testimony. I don't even understand, but it looks like that's what they're trying to say now.
To a conclusion, to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty regarding the variance between the text stream data and Mr. O'Keefe's phone?
Yes, there was. So we can't say, we can pinpoint approximately when the 3-point turn ends based on the GPS data. But best practice would be to use a range of time. So the range we're using is the time that the 3-point turn starts to the time that the 3-point turn ends.
Could we have from Mr. Burgess's PowerPoint number 41, please? Is this part of your presentation helpful in explaining the beginning and end point of that 3-point turn?
It does. So if you recall yesterday, The heading change, first heading change from a general north heading is depicted by that green shading circle.
Could you use your pointer, please?
Sure, yes.
Ms. Gilman, can you enlarge just a little bit?
So again, so this green circle is going to be the center of the circle is going to be the GPS point itself. That's going to be centered on the horizontal radius, which is the accuracy. So the green circle represents the 16-foot accuracy zone. The black arrow coming off in a northwestern direction is going to be the heading for that point. And then again, the yellow is going to be the approximately 8 seconds later when the heading changes again in a southerly direction. And then the GPS points after that also continue south with increasing speed.
What part of the 3-point turn event does the green circle signify?
Sure.
Sorry, wait, how did this get on the screen? Anyway, it does make it more fun. I was going to say, look at all the nice colors, but then I was like, wait, there's even more colors than expected. That's hilarious, isn't it? I thought I took this off the screen. Did I accidentally click on it? That's really funny. Yay, go squirrel.
So that's going to be the approximate beginning of the 3-point turn.
In that time?
That's going to be 12:23:59.
The yellow circle, what part of the 3-point turn does that indicate?
Sure. So that's going to be approximately the end of the 3-point turn. And that time is going to be 12:24:07.
Is there any correlation between the times in the green, the time difference between the green and yellow circle and the range you ultimately arrive at as far as the synchronization variance?
Yes. So that is what determines that range of 21 to 29 seconds.
This illustration or diagram where you've put the green circle, is that based on actual data?
Yes, that is based on actual data recorded by Mr. O'Keefe's iPhone.
That data, is it accurately reflected in this diagram?
Yes, it is. So again, the GPS point that is recorded within the iPhone, every point has a horizontal accuracy. And again, that horizontal accuracy is depicted by the green circle.
Is that level of precision used when you create this diagram?
Yes, it is.
The yellow circle, is that specifically reflected in the data or is that an estimate?
Sure. So that's specifically reflected in the data.
Are those solar panels on the Albert House there, guys?
So that is another GPS position that has been recorded by the iPhone. Again, with a horizontal accuracy, a timestamp, and a speed and heading.
How about the orange circles?
So the orange circles are are portions of the GPS positions leading up to this event. So if we went back one slide, you would see, it would zoom out, obviously, so a little bit harder to see. But essentially what we've done is I've removed the other orange circles representing GPS points heading north and the GPS points heading south after the 3-point turn. And I've just removed those for clarity to kind of clean up the map so it's easier to read.
On the left, text stream 11621. Remind us again where that information comes from?
Sure. So that's the text stream. That's the end of the text stream event for the 3-point turn. And that is based on the infotainment clock as well as that running timer from the airbag control module.
Does this diagram reflect the data that you reviewed to a reasonable degree of
I
scientific
did not
certainty?
realize they had that many
Yes, it
solar
does.
panels. Where's my bean, though?
In breaking down this timestamp 154 and getting into the minute detail of when it started and ended, one of your charts, does it also show it numerically?
Yes, it does.
Can we have number 40, please? And before we discuss this again, where did you get the information to put in this chart?
Sure. So this is coming from Mr. O'Keefe's iPhone. Specifically, it's coming from a SQLite database that is recording locations as he's using the Waze app to navigate.
Is the information in this chart or diagram directly from the data?
It is directly from the data.
Is this accurate to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty?
Yes, it is.
If we could zoom in just a little, we'll have to go left to right, Ms. Gilman. Let's start with the left. Timestamp 154. At what point in that 3-point turn does 154 represent on the left?
Yeah. So timestamp 12:23:58 or GPS point 154 is approximately 1 second before we see the heading change. If we could zoom out just a little bit more. Yep. So we see the heading change represented in green. That's a heading change to 284. Before that, we've got a pretty consistent heading of 348 to 339. So that first heading change, as well as the drop in speeds, is indicative of a 3-point turn maneuver.
The latitude and longitude, did that assist you in making the diagram with the circles on it?
Yes, it did.
How so?
So the latitude and longitude are the center points for each GPS point or the center point for each circle.
There's a green highlighted row and an orange highlighted row. What's the difference between the two?
Sure. So the green highlighted row is, again, the approximate beginning of the 3-point turn. And the orange or the yellow is the approximate end of the 3-point turn.
In the time.
Those things too, right? Where it's like, this is all information that seems like should have come out on direct, right? You know what I mean? Like, why did this not come out on direct? I don't know. It made for this really, really, really lengthy redirect where it was either rehashing old ground or just like completely new information that should have come out in direct. Shout out to Iris, who's going to be getting some groceries. Love it. Hope you get something good. Let us know. Let us know what you get.
Time between the green and the orange lines?
Approximately 8 seconds.
Is that consistent with the range that you've shown for synchronization?
Yes, it
between
is.
Point 21, plus 21 and plus 29?
Yes, it is.
The inevitable variance that you found between the text stream data and
Almost
between
says
Mr.
ample.
O'Keefe's cell phone, could you share with us to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty what that variance is?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Do you have an opinion about the time range and the synchronization between Mr. O'Keefe's cell phone data and the Lexus clock that shows the text stream data to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty?
Objection, Your Honor. I appreciate an approach at the appropriate time.
Okay, so answer that question, yes or no.
Sure. So yes, I can.
So I'll see you inside that, Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Sidebar that we get to skip through. Whee! Skip through the sidebar, skip through the sidebar, skip through the side. Who's the lady sitting next to Peggy? Or Peg, I guess people call her. Peggy, Peg.
Can we go back to slide 40, please? In reaching your conclusion about the variance between the defendant's Lexus as contained in the text stream as it relates to Mr. O'Keefe's iPhone, was stamp 154, timestamp 154, part of your analysis?
Yes, it was part of my analysis.
Was the running clock on the text stream data part of your analysis?
Yes, it was part of my analysis.
What else was part of your analysis?
Sure. So in addition to the location data, including the GPS 154, that would be the running clock for the text stream data, as well as the infotainment clock from the Lexus.
How does the running clock correlate with the text stream data and with the time on Mr. O'Keefe's iPhone?
Sure. So they correlate. So the running clock and the infotainment clock are used to create that timestamp for the text stream events 1 and 2. And then comparing those to the iPhone, we can adjust and get a clock variance for those.
Did you come to a conclusion to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty about the variance range between the defendant's Lexus and its clock system and Mr. O'Keefe's phone?
Yes, I did.
And to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty, what is that variance that is needed to identify for synchronization?
Objection, Your Honor.
Overruled.
That is 21 to 29 seconds.
Great. Wonderful. Angel says, so if this were Hitler's courtroom, they'd not be allowed to have the lights on after the hour. That is freaking hilarious. Y'all heard me talk about that. I thought that was the weirdest thing I've literally ever heard. And I just think the concept of them having to do, if they want to use a PowerPoint presentation or whatever, that they would have to do their entire opening and or entire closing opening statement and or closing argument completely in the dark, blows my mind. Like, why can't they switch the lights on? This is the weirdest fucking thing I've ever heard. Why are you saying you can hear me? I don't know. Is that? I don't know what that's in response to. So also shout out to the Elmo though. We love the Elmo.
We now have number 43.
Oh, Angel, you hear? Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. Is that true, James, about your brother?
Did you create this diagram?
I did, yes.
When comparing the text stream event, the backing maneuver, to Mr. O'Keefe's clock on his phone, do you recognize the different timestamps on each device?
Yes, I do.
When you are trying to synchronize them, what do you do? What is the base? Do you start with the text stream event and you add, or do you start with Mr. O'Keefe's phone and subtract?
Sure. So we could do it either way because we're wanting to compare this against other events that happened or occurred on Mr. O'Keefe's phone.
He's like, we can do this either way because basically we're just making everything up here. Time is just imaginary. We can just do it whatever.
We're going to adjust.
21 seconds, maybe 29 seconds, and do add plus, add, subtract. It doesn't matter,
The text stream clock or the Lexus clock to Mr. O'Keefe's clock. But you could do it either way.
The window that is depicted on this diagram, this is not the 3-point turn?
No, this is not the 3-point turn.
Which event is this?
This is going to be the backing maneuver.
The green, what does that green depict?
Sure. So the green depicts the range of time that this text stream event ended. So based on our range of 21 to 29 seconds, and applying that, adding that to the Lexus clock, we get a adjusted time of 12:32:04 to 12:32:12, and that's going to be the approximate end time of text stream event 11:62:2.
Now, again, the text stream data has a limit on the amount of time available?
Can you rephrase your question? So I
Sure. You said a
understand.
window is captured during a triggering event.
Sure. Yes. So there is a window that's captured during the triggering event.
And what is that window? How much time?
Sure. So from the text stream trigger, there's 5 seconds before and 5 seconds after.
Can an event be longer than that 10-second window?
Yes, it can.
And in this case, do you know at the end of this reconciled event at 12:32:12, do you know from your study what direction the defendant's car was traveling at 12:32:12?
It would have been traveling in reverse.
And at 12:32:12, do you know how fast the defendant's Lexus was traveling at 12:32:12?
I do not recall.
Mr. O'Keefe's last user interaction with his phone at 12:32:09, where does that fall within the 10-second window that was captured by the text stream data?
Sure. So that falls within that 8-second window. So again, the
Yeah.
text stream event ends somewhere.
I said this earlier this morning, just to reiterate that let's pretend that this dude didn't have any credibility issues with the CVs and LinkedIn and perjuring himself on the stand potentially and whatnot. Let's set all that aside. Let's pretend that it's not even the case. It's going to be a battle of the experts, right, between him and then the defense expert when he testifies. And with any battle of the experts, regardless of, the jury's going to be the decider of the facts, right? So whatever the facts may be, oftentimes when you have a battle of the experts, what it's going to really come down to what the jury's going to, how, in terms of which light, in the light most favorable of which party they will view the facts of the case, oftentimes it just comes down to which expert can explain things better. You know what I mean? For example, even if you've got a situation where the facts, like, let's just say that if you've been following a case and pre-trial and, you know things the jury doesn't know, say, okay, as an example. And let's just say that that the facts are one particular thing. And then unfortunately, the expert for that, whichever side that is, right, doesn't really explain it very well. And then the other side has an expert that explains it really well, but you're like, but you know that they're wrong, right? The point being that if you're on the jury, oftentimes when you've got a battle of the experts, you're going to interpret the facts a certain way based on whichever expert explains things better. And I just think that is so important to keep in mind, because this dude, even if you set aside all the credibility stuff, I mean, every single person that was in the Squirrel crew in the chat and, the brief amount that I heard other people weigh in on this, it's like, this was just going over everyone's head, and not because it's too complicated or whatever, just because he's not explaining it well. Like he's just, and again, even if you set aside the credibility, right? Like I'm genuinely trying to follow, and it's just not working. You know what I mean? And it also got even more convoluted again when he started implementing the report from the defense expert who hasn't testified yet. And he was like, just ignore that thing here. Don't mind that thing there. I mean, it's just like, what? So anyway, just keep that in mind, right? Because the point being, if the defense expert can come in and just explain things in a way that is like, okay, I can follow it, regardless of what his opinions are, that's going to bode really well for the jury weighing the facts in favor of the defense, right?
Somewhere between 12:32 and 04 and 12:32:12. But that does not represent that the backing maneuver has ended. Just the recorded data has ended.
And in your review, do you have, around this time, any other movement of Mr. O'Keefe's phone after 12:32:16?
I did not look at that specifically. It was my understanding that Mr. Whiffen looked at that.
To a reasonable degree of scientific certainty, did both these events, the last user interaction and the window captured on the reconciled data for the text stream, happen around the same time?
Yes, they did.
I have no further questions.
Great. That wasn't too
All right, can I
bad.
vote later or now?
You made
So we
that
can vote
look
again.
another sidebar. Now, for any of you guys who were here, God, when was it? I guess it was this morning. I think it was crossed this morning, right? So what happened this morning was I think it was this morning. It was either this morning or the end of the day yesterday, but at some point, Mr. Alessi was like followed back up, circled back around to the TV thing, right? And he was like, he would directly ask him, and you know what they say, right? Don't ask a question you don't know the answer to. And he said to Mr. Burgess, are you sure that you never testified under oath from the witness stand or represented to a court or whatever that you definitely have this degree? And he said no. And I literally said, and whenever I get to the timestamp, I'll timestamp. But I literally said, how much you want to bet on recross? He's going to bring the receipts. I was like thinking to myself, he's going to come back with proof that that's a lie. And sure enough,
41.
I
I'm moving
was jumping up and down.
Your Honor, I'm moving.
I'm going to put this on 1.25 now.
To evidence the following pages from Mr. Burgess's PowerPoint presentation. Moving to evidence page 41. I'm moving to evidence page 40. And I'm moving to evidence page 43.
Okay, allowed.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, I
I have no further questions.
Wait,
It was like
once we get these moving.
I just knew I was like, he's gonna follow back up on that. He's gonna bring the goods. It's just a recross.
A, B, and C.
All right, I'm just getting this whenever you're in. All right.
May I, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Burgess, between the time you left the witness stand yesterday until this moment, have you talked to anyone about this case?
No, sir, I have not.
Has a filing ever been made in any court in which your educational background has been misrepresented?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Pardon me?
Not that I'm aware of.
And oh god, it's just like you just know it's coming. You just watch him nod. Watch Mr. Alessi nod. Because he's like, all right, you asked for it.
Educational background has been misrepresented.
No, not that I'm aware of.
Pardon me?
Not that I'm aware of.
Wow.
Did I understand that you're based out of the Aperture office in Texas?
Yes, I am.
I've never watched her, but I know who she is. Every now and again she's popped up on like a law and crime thing. But yeah, I saw her. I was literally just thinking, Meg, I was like, I know that question was for Angel, but I was literally like, oh, is that what's her face? I couldn't remember her name, but that's who it was.
And are you aware of a case in the United States District Court, Eastern District of Texas, Marshall Division, titled Jeffrey Glover and Teresa Glover versus Graphic Packaging International, LLC? Are you familiar with that case?
Yes, I am.
And is it correct that in that case, well, tell me how you are participating in that case, sir.
So I'm no longer participating in that case. So if I believe correctly, that would have been a accident reconstruction case
Gallery.
from, I don't recall, a year or two ago.
And so it was a case that you did participate in, correct?
Yes, I did.
And what was your role in that case?
Sure. So my role in that case was an accident reconstructionist.
And did you provide any testimony, deposition, or otherwise in that case?
No, I did not.
Did you, in that particular case, there were, like all cases, filings made, correct?
I'm sure there were, yes.
Oh my god. Oh. And he just sits there. He just sits there like, like what is going on? There's nothing going on in his brain.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
I would like to have a document marked as the next exhibit for identification, please.
Exhibit EEE for ID.
Sorry.
May I present to the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Burgess, I am showing you a document which has been marked as Exhibit EEE for identification, and I'd ask that you take a look at it, sir. Your Honor, may I remain here?
Sure, as long as you stand back a little bit.
Exactly, yes. Thank you, Your Honor.
Take a look. Take a look. It's in a book. It's your impeachment. Your impeachment.
Mr. Burgess, with regard to Exhibit EEE, do you recognize the second page, and do you recognize any stamping at the top of each of those pages?
Yes, I do.
And can you describe what that stamping is?
Sure. So that is stamping for a file date of 8/7/2023.
And is that a stamping of a federal court?
That I'm not sure.
If I were to show you a document, might a document refresh your recollection as to whether
Sure.
Exhibit EEE is a filing in a federal court?
Yes.
May I, Your Honor?
Sure.
I am showing you,
Did you show those to Mr. Brennan?
thank you, Your Honor.
Go show Mr. Brennan.
I believe I did, but I want to make
And just like,
sure
yes.
these for identity.
He's just trying to slow this down, I guess.
It is, so.
Exhibit FFF right here.
FFS. Are we sure it's not FFS?
Yes.
Thank you. Sir, I am showing you what has been marked as Exhibit FFF for identification and ask whether or not this document can refresh your recollection as to whether the court filing that you reviewed in Exhibit EEE is indeed a federal court.
Yes, it is.
So that document refreshes your recollection that what has been filed is represented in EEE as a filing in a federal court, correct, sir?
Correct.
Now, what I'd like to do is to draw your attention to the second page of this exhibit. Is that a curriculum vitae of you and a picture of you?
Yes, it is.
And sir, under education,
Objection.
I would,
The objections stayed.
do you,
Do you want to bring it?
She's doing that weird smiley thing again. Like she was doing, what was it, yesterday? Or I don't even remember this morning. Yeah, yesterday. What is with the weird smiley thing?
picture of you?
Yes, it is.
And sir, under education,
Objection.
I would,
The objections stayed.
do you,
Do you want to bring it over? We can take
I
it
will,
over.
Your Honor, I will.
Jurors, feel free to stand up and stretch.
Okay, well they do that. So I'm putting some in the chat here. So as far as the E, so in Russian, you guys get little mini Russian lessons every now and again here. So in Russian, so this is the Cyrillic alphabet here. So if you were to take EEE and say two E's, like this in English, right? Like this scenario, double E's, right? In Russian, I thought I would point out that in Russian, there's a lot of ways you could spell that in terms of the sound, right? And you can have it this way. So all these different pairings here. So you can have the first pairing there where it looks like backwards ends. That would be E. And then the second one would also be E. And then the third one is a funny one. It's still, if you say it quickly in the context of a full word, it could still come across at the end of a word like E. But really, the actual pronunciation would be like A. That first character there, which is looks like a B and an I, that's all one character, is a funny one. It's like a guttural sound. It's like a ugh kind of thing. So it's like a kind of thing. Anyway, there you go. Mini Russian lesson. There you go.
Yes.
Thank you. Can I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Burgess, I'm going to have to get a little closer proximity. Bear with me, please. What I would like to do, sir, is to put before you again Exhibit FF for identification and Exhibit EE for identification.
Also,
And what I would like to do.
also, one of my favorite words in Russian, just because it's really crazy sounding, also happens to be the word for investigation. I'll put it in the chat so you guys can see what it looks like.
and then I'll pronounce it because it's an insane one, but it's one of my favorite Russian words. So here it is. There you go. That's Расследование. I can say that better. Hold on. Расследование. Yeah, there you go. That means investigation.
Is to ask you some questions, sir, with regard to the process in the case.
Okay.
Are you aware, or do you recall in this litigation that, as typical in litigation, including federal courts, that as part of the litigation process, the parties
I
have to
remember
designate their expert witnesses? Are you aware generally of that process?
Generally, yes.
We all know where the
And have you
spelling.
participated in the
Thanks.
documents that need to be
Спасибо.
prepared for an attorney
Спасибо
or a
большое.
party to prepare documents and submit them to a court to establish the designation of expert witnesses?
No, I have not.
And so you have never participated or never been aware of a process like this?
No, I'm aware of a process, and that process goes through other staff members
Okay, so it goes through other staff members where?
at Aperture.
Are you aware that that process is occurring, even though it may be done by other staff at Aperture?
Yes, I am.
And in this instance, you were aware in this litigation that staff at Aperture needed to submit documents in support of an expert witness designation, correct? Even though you may not have done it yourself, you were aware that some person or persons at Aperture were performing that process, correct?
Correct.
And they were performing that process so that you could be designated as an expert witness in that case, correct?
Correct.
And so you were aware of the process, you were aware they had to submit documents that would establish your qualifications as an expert in the case so that you could be designated as an expert witness, correct?
Correct.
And now specifically with regard to Exhibit EEE for identification with these court filings, et cetera,
Great.
even though you we were talking about,
Not this
Sorry,
specific
guys,
document.
it's just the spinning wheel, but we're here. It's all
Yeah.
good.
were you aware that a CV was needed to be submitted on your behalf as part of the designation process?
Yes.
So you were aware a CV had to be submitted, but you're saying you don't recall this specific one being submitted?
Correct.
Does the timestamp up at the top of each page of Exhibit EEE, including this page that is your CV, match the timestamp, or is it different from the timestamp at the top of Exhibit FFF?
No, that is the same.
So it's exactly the same.
Yes.
And have you been involved in processes in courts where your qualifications, including your CV, have had to be submitted to courts to establish a designation as an expert witness?
Yes.
Well, yeah.
And can you conclude from these documents, including the timestamps, that the submission that was made to the court to establish your status and as an expert witness consisted of exhibits FFF and EEE?
Objection.
Although I allow that, were you aware of that?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this point, I move EEE and FFF into evidence.
Objection.
You need one more step, Mr. Chairman.
And sir, do EEE and FFF fairly and accurately represent
He's got to lay all this
the
foundation.
submission of documents in support of a designation of expert witness in this case?
Yes, as far as I can tell.
Your Honor, I offer these two into evidence.
I'm going to allow it over here.
May I hear briefly?
Yes, tomorrow. Bring those, please, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Your Honor.
So another one of my favorite Russian words because I love the way it sounds. So this is молодец, which means well done. Sometimes when I'm even teaching with a student, I'll just switch it up, and I don't even do it on purpose. I do it without thinking. I'll just say, instead of saying well done, I'll say молодец, and they all know what it means because they're so used to hearing me say it. I just think it sounds cool, so much better than well done. Молодец, I love it. So I was saying молодец to Angel for saying спасибо. Look at Peggy again. She should be careful of all that.
Yes.
Eggplant.
I'm going to have to stand here again, Mr.
Sure.
Burgess. So what I would like to do, Your Honor, at this time is to offer into evidence Exhibit EEE and Exhibit FFF for identification
As one exhibit?
as one exhibit.
Right, we'll do that.
Here's eggplant.
And that would be the order.
And that would be pronounced baclajan. Baclajan.
193.
Oh, interesting.
Thank you. May I hand to the
Yes.
So she speaks
Mr.
Russian.
Burgess,
Yeah.
I am handing you what is now in evidence as Exhibit 193, I would like to draw your attention to the fourth page, which is your CV. And further, if I could, sir, draw your attention to the category of education, where it says BGS. Is it correct that there you state Bachelor of General Science in Mathematics and Business Administration, University of Alabama - Birmingham, Alabama, comma, 2024? Did I read that correctly?
You did read that correctly. And this was filed in 2023.
Understood. So now what I'd like to do, Your Honor, is to keep this for a moment, Your Honor, give it to the witnesses as needed. Thank you. With Your Honor's permission, I would like to publish a document that is already in evidence.
Okay.
Actually, there may be two, 183 and 184. Let's start with 183. Let's expand it. And then, Mr. Wolk, do we have what has just been to publish as well? So what I'd like to do is to publish first, with the court's permission, Exhibit 193 that we were just talking about, so the jury can see what has been the subject of discussion. And sir, if you, Mr. Wolk, if you could just enlarge, all we need is the education section. Now, Mr. Burgess, as I heard it correctly in questions from Mr. Brennan, you answered the question that whether you had ever filed a document that misstated your educational background in a court. Do you recall that question asked of you?
Yes, I
And your answer was no, correct,
All
sir?
that
Correct.
foundation.
So let's look at this document,
Just all that foundation, but this was the point.
which we've just gone through, was filed in federal court in the United States District Court, Eastern District of Texas.
I mean, this dude, though,
Marshall Division, which is a federal court, and attached to it is your CV, and in the line of education, it lists under BGS, Bachelor of General Science in Mathematics and Business Administration, University of Alabama, Birmingham, Alabama, 2024. You see that, sir?
I do, yes.
Now, you stated, and now what I'd like to do is is there any qualification whatsoever in that line, that reference to BGS, qualifications at all, explanation, sir? Is there anything?
I don't know what you mean.
It's just a statement, right? There's words there. There's nothing after it that explains what's intended, correct?
Correct.
Now, what I'd like to do, Your Honor, is to go to what was filed in this case, which is in evidence, and we'll go to 183 and then 184. Now, in what has been filed in this case, there is a currently pursuing at the end after University of Alabama - Birmingham, Alabama, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Let's go back, please, to Exhibit 193. There is no currently pursuing there, is there, sir?
There is not, but that was filed in 2023, so that would be an expected graduation date of 2024.
Okay, so
Oh my God.
it was, this document was filed in 2023. However, there's nothing in this document that in any way leads the reader to believe anything other than the degree is obtained on 2024, correct?
Correct.
So the only way somebody in the court system or a judge or a jury would know anything about this is to have to know about court filing dates, correct? I'll ask it another way, Mr. Burgess. You know how to write. Let's go back to 183 and 184.
I haven't seen this particular part, but what I imagine he's going to ask here is, you know how to write it as in currently in progress or whatever, because he did put that on one document. It was notably absent from the vast majority of them, right? But it's like, you know how to do it, so you could have done it and you didn't. That's what I would have meant. Yeah, back when I was a kid, I think
You know how to write currently pursuing
but
on your CV,
yeah.
correct?
Correct.
And writing currently pursuing lets the reader know
There
that
it
you
is.
don't have that degree, correct?
Objection.
In that form, it's sustained.
You intend by writing currently pursuing, don't you, sir, that anybody reads this to know that you do not have a bachelor degree, correct?
Correct.
Now let's go back to what you filed in what was filed in federal court in that case. And it does not have the words currently pursuing, correct?
It does not.
So the reader, it doesn't have that verbiage, correct?
Correct.
So isn't it the correct answer that you did file a document, your CV, in this federal court case that misstates the status of a Bachelor of Science in Mathematics and Business Administration?
Yes.
Sustained.
Excuse me, Your Honor.
Because I don't know the band. Yeah.
You stated again, sir, that you have not filed a document that misstates your educational background, correct?
Correct.
And the last time I'll cover it, you know how to put currently pursuing on anything to do with a Bachelor of Science, correct?
Correct.
A Bachelor of General Science in Mathematics and Business Administration does not exist as an offered degree at the University of Alabama, Birmingham, does it?
Sure. So that is an error. Clearly, BGS stands for Bachelor's of General Studies, and that should have a with minor in Mathematics and Business Administration.
What is clear from that document that BGS stands for a Bachelor of General Studies? What is clear in that document about the definition of that acronym?
That is a known acronym.
Let's go back to Bachelor of General Science in Mathematics and Business Administration. That degree does not exist. It is not offered at the University of Alabama, Birmingham, correct?
No, that is not.
So therefore, an incorrect statement about your educational background was filed in a federal court in Texas, correct?
Yes, it was.
That's it, Mr. Leslie?
That's it.
Okay. Is there anything?
There is.
Okay.
Okay.
The document that the attorney just showed you, did you submit that to the federal court?
No, I did not.
Did you ever see that document before it was filed?
No, I did not.
The document says 2024 for a degree. Is there a presumption whether you had it or expected it if that document was filed in 2023?
Yes, there is.
And what is the presumption if it was
The-
filed in
It
2023?
doesn't say that.
So presumption,
No.
so I'll strike that.
Okay. He asked if there was any designation to make it clear. If it says 2020, if it was filed in 2023 and it says 2024, what was your expectation at that time as far as your degree?
That I would complete my degree in 2024.
When you didn't complete your degree in 2024 as you expected, did you then change your CV
Yes, I did.
to accurately reflect the change in your status?
Yes, I did.
And what did you change it to?
Currently pursuing.
Why didn't you finish your degree in 2024?
Sure. So
I'm going to allow it.
as most people can probably relate, work, family, and life many times get in the way. So as a personal objective, I would like to finish my bachelor's, but again, work and life gets in the way.
Did you ever represent to a court that you had a degree that you didn't earn?
No, I have not.
He asked you a number of questions about this 2023 filing, but didn't ask you any questions about the data. Is your opinion regarding the data change in any way in light of
That's not
his
bad.
questions about a 2023 filing that you didn't file and someone filed on your behalf?
The objection
come
is
on.
sustained. I'm going to strike that.
Yeah, speculation and objection discussed.
All right, Ms. Burgess, you are all set.
Thank you.
Dude, that's how he finishes with his witness. You guys listen to this way to finish, Breen, and listen.
You didn't file and someone filed on your behalf.
The objection is sustained. I'm going to strike that question.
He should have just at least asked one more question to try to not end it on like his question getting stricken. And she was quick. She was quick to strike that. I don't even think they asked to have it stricken. She's like sustained, stricken, dude. All right, next up,
All right, Ms. Burgess, you are all set.
Thank you.
Wally Bird returns. Oh, sorry. I didn't know there was a split.
So we approach from the north, we actually missed the turn. And John says to me, it's Fairview, we just passed it, it's back there, it's on my left. I said, all right, so I pull into a driveway, back out onto the street, which I now own as Cedar Crest, and then come from the north onto Fairview.
Like the next play, clip 20.
What? Huh?
So we approach from the north, we actually missed the turn, and John says to me, it's Fairview, we just passed it, it's back there, it's on my left. I said, all right, so I pull nose into a driveway and back out onto the street, which I now own as Cedar Crest, and then come from the north onto Fairview.
Oh, they're saying that's a 3-point turn. That's what they're saying. Okay. I see.
Like the next play, clip 25.
At 12:41, I leave a voicemail to John, and you can clearly, and this will probably be played on Monday, you can clearly hear me pull into John's garage. You can hear my car sensors beeping as I come close to the sides of the garage. And then you hear the car go off, and then you hear the slight ding, 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 as I open the door, shut the door, I'm gonna high heels on the night, you hear me walk in, go into the stairs up into the kitchen, shut the door, you hear me walk in the kitchen. It's like a full minute long. That's at 12:41.
And finally, clip 20.
Oh, that's how they're trying to address this time. Well, okay. What they're saying, the reason they're playing that is it's her saying, she's saying that's her pulling into the house. Okay, and that would put her arriving at 12:41. The problem I have with that, though, is that the only explanation then is that she still arrives at 12:36. There's no way she connects to that Wi-Fi when she's still at 34 Fairview, or you have to be, they even said you have to be basically in the driveway, right? You have to be basically in the driveway to connect. So she's on the property, she's at One Meadows to connect. So the only way that that's even possible is if for 5 minutes she sits in the car making those first voicemails or what have you. So I was literally, initially I was like, oh, that's them trying to deal with this timestamp and make it seem like she arrived at 12:41. But I'm like, no, it still doesn't work because there's no other way for her to connect to that Wi-Fi. If she's like on the way, like she has to be on the driveway or on the property, or, I just don't.
24.
Iris, are you back from the store? Did you get anything good? Angel, $1 million question, right? I mean, it's her right. It's her right to do that, ill-advised, as everybody always says. I think everybody thinks it was a mistake. I mean, it's just like the defendants taking the stand, right? Like, take Alex Murdaugh, for example. It's not even a secret that his attorneys literally, they're not supposed to tell you to do something, right? Like to not take the stand or whatever. But, they play by their own rules in the Low Country of South Carolina. And it was clear from the colloquy that they were literally like, don't be an idiot, don't take the stand, essentially, right? I'm paraphrasing. And he was like, fuck y'all, I'm taking the stand. So in other words, we don't know. They could have advised her against it in a polite manner. And she could have said, I want to make my voice heard. Or it could be, again, maybe thinking it was, and what I will say is this: I can't imagine a possibility or a realm where it was a defense strategy where they said, we want you to do this for the publicity, because her attorneys, just know it never helps to talk. Your words will be used against you. So, it's just one of those things, right? Like, I guarantee you they didn't encourage it. If anything, they probably cautioned her against it, but then said at the end of the day, it's your choice, there's no way that it was like their idea, or that they thought it was a good strategy. I can't fathom that being possible at all. Right, she connects to the Wi-Fi 1236, correct? Right, I lose Wi-Fi at my mailbox as well, Angel. Yep. Yep. I mean, again, even Trooper Greeno, that came out, earlier on in the case, where he said that you would have to be the widest possible range would still put you in the driveway. He said you would either have to be in the driveway or closer to get to connect to that Wi-Fi. Like, they tested it out or whatever, or something like that. So But again, that's what makes sense. So there's just no way they can't explain that, but they're trying. So Iris confirms back from the store with a fruit. Is that, by the way, is that a self-portrait, Iris, that you did? It's lovely, whoever made that. And if it's you, or even if it's not you, it's still lovely. And also Iris is one of my favorite names. Yeah, I agree with that, Angel, that she appears so close to Jackson. And I think we're all surprised. I mean, it's a lot of talking. So I guess there's another clip.
I do. I mean, I'll tell you, John and I argued the morning of the 28th, Friday morning. So we think he died right around 12:25, 12:30 on the earlier morning, January 29th.
Thank you. I have these for submission again.
Again. I mean,
John and I argued the morning of the 28th, Friday morning. So we think he died right around 12:25, 12:30 on the earlier morning, January 29th.
so I wonder if they wanted that to be confusing to the jury, because if you really pay attention, that's why I'm going to play it one more time. If you don't really pay attention, you could think she's saying that they argued at 12:25 or 12:30, that's when they argued. That's not what she's saying. She's saying that's when she thinks they think he died or whatever. That's what she's saying. She's saying they argued in that morning, which we already know. That was the bit about spoiling the kids, right? So in other words, I think that the Commonwealth wants this to sound to the jury like she's saying they argued when they were outside of 34 Fairview, right? If they don't pay attention, it's like 12:25, 12:30. They know that's the time frame, right, of being out around the house. But she's saying in that morning, so like over 12 hours prior, right?
I do. I mean, I'll tell you, John and I argued the morning of the 28th, Friday morning. So we think he died right around 12:25, 12:30 on the earlier morning, January 29th.
So she's saying January 28th in the morning had that. And again, the jury already knew about that. That's why playing this clip, I think the only reason is because they're hoping the jury's going to think that she was saying they argued when they were outside of the house. That's not what she's saying.
194.
So also, the next witness. So I was saying, I'm thinking that the lawyers are smart and they guess they could take some punches about the issues, but they think again, I don't think that they wanted her to do it, but it's one of those things where it's her right and she chose to do it. And so they're going to handle it. That's their job, right? Just like if a defendant takes a stand or if a defendant, did interrogations with law enforcement, if the defendant spoke prior to an attorney's involvement or after an attorney's involvement, that's their right. And the attorney's job is to handle it, right? Just like when there's bad facts that, as they say, you handle it. That's what you do. It's her right to do that. And that's their job to just, like you said, like do the best they can with it. So they definitely didn't
call Miss Christina Hanley
to do that. All right. So she's back. I don't think we get to call today. So we're going to skip over some of the preliminary stuff.
Whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Could you please introduce yourself to the jury, spelling your last name for the court?
Sure. I'm Christina Hanley. Hanley is Hanley.
And Ms. Hanley, what do you do for work?
I am a forensic scientist 3 at the Massachusetts State Police Crime Laboratory in the Trace Arson and Explosives Unit.
And where did you go to school?
I went to, I had received my Bachelor of Science in Chemistry with a concentration in forensics from Merrimack College.
And do you have any other degrees?
I do not.
Now, following your education, where did you first go to work?
I began working at the State Police Crime Lab in 2008 in the Drug Identification Unit. And in 2009, I transferred into...
Randall, brilliant. He's being Judge Bev. I'll allow it. Nice. Ja, pozwoliłeta. Nice. Well done. Well done. Molodiec to you. I'll allow it.
to the Trace Unit.
Okay, so again, we're going to skip past some of this background stuff. Great. Competency, proficiency, things of that nature. Okay.
Now, with reference to physical match analysis, can you explain to the jury first, just in general terms, how is that analysis performed?
Sure. So when I receive an item, I take that item into my custody, and I document it with photographs, and I make observations and take notes, and then I'll examine the items microscopically.
I mean, I know, right? I think her CV's fine though. She testified last year, but I mean, for real though, right? It's like worth doing every time now, huh?
And I will do any comparison work to determine if there is or is not a physical match between items.
Now, that physical match analysis within the trace unit at the state lab, is that general work supported by any sort of scientific principle or methodology that you're aware
of? Yes.
Let me ask you this. Are you familiar with something called the Lockhart exchange principle?
Yes. So the Lockhart exchange principle, it's kind of the foundation or basis of trace analysis. It is a principle that states that when two objects or two items come into contact with each other, there is an exchange of material.
Now, with reference to your workspace, what is it that you do to your bench between your examination of separately packaged items?
I guarantee you she cleans her fucking bench. Great. Wonderful.
Etc.
Now, when evidence is submitted to your lab, how is it kept track of throughout its stay at the lab?
Sure. So when evidence is submitted to the laboratory, the case information is put into our LIMS system, which stands for Laboratory Information Management System.
And once it's assigned that number, how is it sort of tracked as it progresses through the different units within the lab?
Sure. So the unique case number that's assigned to the case is tracked within the system. It's referred to as the chain of custody. So items of evidence will get scanned depending on where their location is, and the LIMS system keeps track of all of that, so we know exactly where an item is.
So when you take an item or you receive an item to be tested, can you explain to the jury what you do to begin your analysis?
Sure. So when an item gets scanned into my custody, after I've picked my area to examine the item, I scan that item into my custody, and
I'm just going to mute this because we can still see the CCs and this is still background. I should have just gone further. But Iris, I totally agree. She says, I mean, some clips end so sudden mid a sentence or even a word that looks bad work that she wonders if Brennan did it himself. Yeah, absolutely. There's so many of them that are really awkward. It's like, huh? You know, it's like if I were on the jury, I'd be like, did you not want them to hear the context, right? Or I guess if I was on the jury, it would be, do you not want us to hear the full context? You know what I mean? And also, it's just like, wow, just way to go, not
observations. I would proceed with, first I would check to see if there's any physical match comparisons, and then if needed, I would take any samples to examine it microscopically and or instrumentally.
And that general process that you've just described is the items that you tested in reference to this case or analyzed in reference to this case. Is that the process that you followed in this case?
Yes.
Now, what kind of instruments do you use, starting off with items of glass, what kind of instruments do you use to conduct that analysis?
Sure. So I'll use a stereo zoom microscope to initially examine it microscopically. If I take samples to do additional.
So we've got Blackwood. So Kat Randall's having some fun learning Russian over there, or I guess using probably Google Translate. So Chernia of Vdova. That's funny. I've actually not used that word personally, but I know what that means. That's Black Widow. Chernia Vdova. Oh, here we go.
What is a refractive index?
Sure. Refractive index is a measure of how light bends when it passes from one medium to another.
And how are you viewing that utilizing the GRIM device when it comes to glass?
So a sample is prepped on a slide, and it is placed on a hot stage of the microscope of the instrument, and the
100%.
oil that the sample is in it goes through a cooling and a heating phase, and as it's going through a cooling and a heating phase.
God, this is just excruciating. Like,
it passes through what we refer to as a match point. So you can make that observation as the sample is running. And then
I remember this being painful last year, and that's why the chalk was such a big deal. I mean, I think that I was probably not alone when they talked about the chalk. I was like, thank God because her testimony is especially difficult. I don't know. Some people just, their job is to analyze the forensic materials. Some people can testify about it in a way that is at least somewhat less likely to put you to sleep. Anyway.
When the sample is done running, it takes an average and it calculates the refractive index of the sample through the calibration data of the instrument.
And what is an FTIR?
So an FTIR is...
So you know what it is? It's like there's no change in pitch. It's so monotone. And I'm not trying to be mean. It's just, this is why it's like, and this is on 1.75. Like, let's put it on normal speed. Because I think she also speaks really slowly. It's like, I couldn't even demonstrate it because I can't talk like that. So let's just hear her do it.
A Fourier transform to analyze certain types of samples. Essentially, a sample is exposed to infrared light and your sample reacts in a certain way to it, and it produces a spectrum or a graph of peaks and valleys, and it is representative of your sample.
How would I say this sentence? Even though it doesn't matter if I know what, if I back it up. So the question is, what is an FTIR? So I'm going to say the sentence based on the CCs and just see how would I say this? And I'm going to try to read it exactly on the thing. For transfer, hold on. I don't know that the CC is right.
To analyze certain types of is a Fourier transform to analyze certain types of samples.
Essentially, like a glitch there. So I'm going to start from the second sentence. Okay. Essentially, a sample is exposed to infrared light, and that says and your. I'm going to try to correct this as well. Okay, so essentially, a sample is exposed to infrared light in a certain way to it, and it produces a spectrum or a graph of peaks and valleys, and it is representative of your sample. Let me try that again. Now that I know where this is going. Okay. Essentially, a sample is exposed to infrared light and a certain way to it, and it produces a spectrum or a graph of peaks and valleys, and it is representative of your sample. Something like that, right? Just, anyway.
And how is that FTIR
right?
instrument? How is that used?
I mean, it's okay. Back to 1.75.
In this type of physical match analysis.
So actually, the FTIR was not used for physical match examination.
Then what was even the point of y'all? It wasn't used. Then what? Why?
Now, you mentioned it a little bit earlier in your testimony. What is a polarized light microscope?
So polarized light microscope is it's a microscope that just has a couple of filters in it.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah, she's not couldn't agree more. She's not a smart ass. She's intelligent. She's not trying to BS anybody. Totally agree. But she does testify a lot because that's one of your things, right? When you have this job, and she testified last year as well, and so some people, when they testify, especially like when it comes to experts, some people, they get really good at testifying, but some people don't. And that's just a personality thing. Again, I'm not saying anything against her. I'm just noting that, as someone as a musician, right? And also I have like a background in musical theater and I'm singing and all this, right? It's just something that my ears notice things like pitch when it comes to voice, even when it comes to speaking. And so for people who are like saying, I know Meg is, if she's still listening, even is browsing. I just know a lot of people were like, I can't follow this. This is so boring, da, da, da. And I just wanted to point out that it's not y'all. And it's not even, I'm not blaming her. Sometimes the content of testimony can be boring, but sometimes the speaker, even if the content is boring, the speaker can still get you to follow along, right? Anyway, here, it's like, I think that most people would say that at least where she got to so far, like, in other words, to the extent that her testimony will not be as boring, it'll probably be when they get to actually the meat and potatoes, as they say, of it, which is putting the pieces of the glass together and what the results are, right? But that's not going to happen for a long time. But all this background stuff, I think most people would agree is probably going to be boring to most people and probably to most jurors. And then you couple that with somebody who has a very natural, like, flat tone and speaks slowly. Again, not to knock her. I'm just saying, if you guys found it boring, don't, that could be why. Like, in other words, it might not just be the content, but also It's just something that I listen for without even trying to, is things like change in pitch and tone and inflection, enunciation, diction, that type of thing.
That we use to look at samples at higher magnification and make observations of certain optical properties of samples.
And how are you utilizing that instrument in your analysis in the lab?
So it's used to examine various different types of samples, paint, fiber. We can also look at glass.
Now, do you document your work as you perform your analysis in the lab?
Yes, I do.
I'm saying, at some point, were you assigned to perform some work on a lab case number 22-02184 pertaining to this defendant, Karen Reed?
Yes, I was.
And what type of work were you assigned to do in this case?
So I was given items for physical match comparison of some glass items, as well as some instrumental analysis of the glass. And I was also given items for some items of plastic for comparison.
Now, starting with glass pieces, do you recall what item numbers you analyzed pertaining to the glass pieces?
Yes. So I examined items 3-2, which was a clear glass cup with broken irregular edges. I was also given item 3-3, which was 5 pieces of clear glass with broken irregular edges from the bumper of the vehicle. And then I was also given item 7-12, which were clear and glass pieces recovered from the road. And I was given also 7-14, which was a clear piece of glass recovered from the road.
And now if we could, Ms. Hanley, just break those down sort of one by one. So starting with item 3-2, what was provided to you in reference to a description of what that item was?
Sure. So item 3-2 was a clear glass cup with broken irregular edges, and there was dirt debris on the exterior and interior of the cup.
Now, did you measure that item?
I did.
And what measurements did you obtain from that item, the drinking glass?
I just would need to refer to my report for measurements.
Okay, you can do that. You have your report right there.
Who cares? Who cares? Get to the, they need to get this chalk up. And I don't think it happens today, unfortunately.
Of the vehicle.
What was the license plate that was provided?
Oh, for fuck's sake.
So sometimes we'll subsequently label them with a lettering system.
Great.
And as far as these particular pieces contained within item 3-3, the pieces of glass from the bumper of the defendant's vehicle, how were they labeled?
So these were labeled A through E, 1 inch by 1/8 of an inch.
I mean,
Correct.
Correct.
And was there
I labeled as PC, and I took a sample for examination under the polarized light microscope and a sample to analyze it instrumentally on the GRIM instrument.
oh my God. I was literally just having a flashback to last year. And I was like, oh my God. As soon as she started, I saw this coming. I was like, oh, it was the GRIM thing that she kept talking about last year. I got so sick of hearing that word. And there it is, the GRIM instrument. Oh no.
Turning your attention to item 7-12, what was provided to you as a description for item 7-12?
Sure. So item 7-12, that consisted of 5 pieces of clear apparent plastic and 9 pieces of clear apparent glass with all with broken irregular edges.
Now, the 9 apparent pieces, well, let me ask you this first. As far as the description that you were provided, was there any description as far as where those items were recovered from?
Yes. Those items were recovered from 34 Fairview Road.
And is it your understanding they were recovered from the street or the roadway outside of that residence?
Probably doesn't
It
know.
just as recovered from 34 Fairview Road.
Now, as far
Accurate, because that's literally what everything said. It's just so dumb, right? 34 Fairview Road could be literally anywhere on the property, including inside the house. Wild that's how everything was labeled.
as the 9 pieces of clear apparent glass from item 7-12, were those similarly sub-labeled as the previous item 3-3?
Yes, I received those labeled with the lettering system. They were labeled A, B, C, D, E, F, I, K, and L.
G-H-I-J.
And with reference to those 9 pieces of glass, did you examine those microscopically as well?
I did, yes.
Now, turning your attention to item 7-14, what were you provided with as far as a description of that item 7-14?
So this item consisted of 1 piece of clear glass with broken irregular edges.
And similarly, was there any description provided as to where that item was recovered from?
Yes, it was recovered from 34 Fairview Road as well.
And again, how many pieces were contained within that item 7-14?
7-14 was just 1 piece of glass.
And did you measure that item as well?
That item, I do not have the measurement of. It was examined by a previous analyst within the unit, so that measurement was taken at that time.
And that other analyst would be Nick Valier, is that correct?
Yes.
And as far as your examination of that item 7-14, what type of instruments did you use to examine 7-14?
So I sampled 7-14 to examine it under the polarized light microscope, as well as to analyze it instrumentally using the GRIM instrument.
Oh!
Are you familiar with a term called a class characteristic?
Yes.
Can you explain to the jury what that is?
Sure. So a class characteristic is when a material can be associated with a group of items that share characteristics.
And what is an individual characteristic?
An individual characteristic is when a material can be related to a single source, such as a physical match.
And so what is the difference between a class characteristic versus an individual characteristic?
So class characteristic is that it can be associated with a group of items that share characteristics versus the individual characteristics. It's more individualizing it. It's kind of related to a single source, just in the case of like a physical match.
And what is physical match?
So a physical match is if an item is broken and those pieces are compared to each other and they're broken at regular edges, fit back together, and they have a jigsaw fit, that would be considered a physical match.
Yeah, like
Now, can you please explain to the jury the steps and the process that you undertook in your comparative analysis?
Oh, yeah, let's take a little break. Baby, that thong, 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 I like the way. Baby, the thong, thong. Why did we start singing the thong? Not that I have any problem with it. I'm just curious if I missed something here. That was good. Oh, right, there it is. AG wears a satin thong. That is freaking hilarious. Oh my God, Angel. That is so funny. Oh God, let's not go that route. Holy crap. What Bev underwear does Bev wear? Oh, disgusting. I mean, ew, 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 ew. Ew.
Analysis of items, specifically of glass in this case.
Sure. So I first did a comparison of all of the glass pieces and the glass cup that were recovered from the road. So those were items 3-2, 7-12, and 7-14. So I examined all of those to determine if there was physical match between any of those items first. There were, I believe, 6 pieces of glass from item 7-12 that fit mechanically to the cup that was also recovered from the road, item 3-2. After I completed that examination, I then did a comparison to see if there was a physical match to some of the 2 of the glass pieces from the bumper. And there were 5 total from the bumper. 2 of them I used for physical match comparison. And there was no physical match comparison between those 2 pieces from the bumper, item 3-3, compared to the glass pieces and the cup that were recovered from the road. And then I sampled, as I mentioned earlier, one of the pieces from the bumper to do further microscopic and analytical analysis on, and did a comparison with one of the pieces from the road.
Wow.
Can I see counsel sidebar for just a minute, please?
Yeah. And that's when she couldn't take it anymore. Just for fun, because this is the end. That's it. Literally, listen, we have to just finish it this way. That answer went on forever. And we were like, let's listen to it on normal speed. That's when Judge Bev is like, I surrender. I can't do it. Let's just see what this sounded like on normal speed.
Analysis of items, specifically of glass in this case.
Sure. So
I'm also going to see how long the answer is. It starts at 6:50.
I first did a comparison.
She's already lost me. Like, okay, I'm not going to interrupt it. Let's go.
In this case.
Sure. So I first did a comparison of all of the glass pieces and the glass cup that were recovered from the road. So those were items 3-2, 7-12, and 7-14. So I examined all of those to determine if there was a physical match between any of those items first. There were, I believe, 6 pieces of glass from item 7-12 that fit mechanically to the cup that was also recovered from the road, item 3-2. After I completed that examination, I then did a comparison to see if there was a physical match to some of the 2 of the glass pieces from the bumper. And there were 5 total from the bumper. 2 of them I
Still the same answer.
used for physical match comparison. And there was no physical match comparison between those 2 pieces from the bumper, item 3-3, compared to
Unbelievable.
the glass pieces and the cup that were recovered from the road. And then I sampled, as I had mentioned earlier, one of the pieces from the bumper to do further microscopic and analytical.
It blows the mind. Blows the mind. the jury is guaranteed not following it. It's just too long.
Analysis on and did a comparison with one of the pieces from the road.
Can I see counsel at sidebar for just a minute, please?
Oh my God. Oh my God. Let's hear what she says. At the end of the day.
Long day, so we're going to stop for the day. Ms. Hanley, I'm going to ask you to come back tomorrow, but a little bit later in the day, and the victim of this person can tell you the time. All right, so folks, we're going to end for today. Please do not discuss this case with anyone. Don't do any independent research or investigation into the case. If you happen to see, hear, or read anything about the case, please disregard it and let us know, and watch your social media use. Thank you. So Ms. Hanley, after the jury trial.
All right, so the court, please. Close your notebook and follow me.
Goodbye.
So there you have it, guys. So they will pick up with her tomorrow. Yep. And hopefully we'll get to again, we know there's a chalk coming. Thank God. That will definitely make things easier to follow. And I'm excited to see what they have for that. I don't know why they didn't have one last year, but anyway. Get the little creeper out. I don't know what you're talking. Get the little creeper out. I don't know what you're talking about, Iris. Her underwear was right. I mean, I would say that her underwear is never right, considering all things considered, right? So that's it. That's it. It was a pretty wild day. Well, yesterday was wild. This day was less wild, but yeah, guys. So, is anybody interested in seeing, like, let me just see here if they had any other. Sometimes it's fun to just see what the people are putting up on, like, CourtTV and whatnot about the days of testimony, and they have like the little, I love Vinny, right? You guys know. Is anybody interested in seeing what is popping on CourtTV? Let me just see if there's anything that looks interesting here. They've got they've got a video. Have you guys seen this video? They've got a video. What does clock drifting in Karen Reed's retrial mean? I haven't seen these. I don't know if you guys are interested at all. I'm just looking through to see if there's anything. I mean, the clock drifting, it still doesn't really make, again, I keep saying, but like the fact that they're trying to say that both times can move on both ends, it's again, to give the example of like an archer, right? Where the archer is moving and the target is moving. It's like, you're never going to hit that target, right? That's what we're working with here. Anyway. Yeah, they should have some chalks. I mean, that was a motion that was made months ago, and that was approved that she can have a chalk. I think both sides wanted it. I mean, because it's like, yeah, come on, we need. It was just so necessary to get. I don't know why they didn't have one last year, but yeah, that should be coming up tomorrow. And then again, with all expectations here, they'll call Judge Welcher after that, unless they've got some other witness before. But I fully expect them to finish their case in chief with him. And as we know, Thursday's a Hoff day. So Definitely better. Yeah, you need the visuals. You need the visuals. That's funny. So is anybody interested, though, in seeing any of this? Oh, here's one. They have an analyst. It looks like John O'Keefe's iPhone clock faster than Karen Reed's. I would love it if someone can explain this in a way that makes sense. Like, that's the thing, because this, so far, that's not happened, right? It's not making sense to me. And the reason I'm saying is because, is it possible that it can make sense? Because here's the deal, right? It's possible that we can understand and make sense of what they're trying to say. And it still, it still doesn't mean that these facts, if you understand them the way the Commonwealth wants you to, are going to help the Commonwealth. But it's frustrating when they can't even help you understand what they're trying to say. You know what I mean? It's like, again, it's like, are they just feeding you hot nonsense, or feeding the jury hot nonsense, right? Or is it just that with a little more trying, we can figure it out? You know what I mean? Like, it seems like it's got to make sense at some point, right? Again, even if it's like, to understand what they're trying to get at with the science and the data, quote unquote, the facts might still not add up to what they're trying to say, but at least trying to figure out what they're trying to go for, right? You know what I mean? So I don't know. Maybe let's check it out and just see if there's anything helpful here. I'm curious. Just because it was a short day of testimony there, since we did the morning head. Okay, so this is ostensibly should have an analyst here. It says, I don't know who it's going to be. Or no, you know what? Never mind. You know what? It says analyst because it's this dude. It's literally just this testimony. Okay, no, we're not. We're going to go back to the other one with the clock drifting then, because, hang on. Because no, we are not watching that again. No way. Hold on. Give me just a second. Let's do this other thing. This. Explain the clock. Make it make sense. Make it make sense.
I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments.
I mean, I love the color of that tie, though.
The case continues a new week.
Yeah, exactly. We set the clock in the car manually. We do. The navigation is Android based, so like, right. But they couldn't get that info from like the infotainment or whatever. They couldn't get that. And he even. The witness even said the thing about, well, I don't know. It's hard to say. He contradicted himself a lot. Kat, I think you're right. He says it won't make sense. And that's why the iPhone's right. That's why this is so frustrating. Like, how are they going to try to say, and they have tried to say that the iPhone can be wrong. And I just, with nothing to support that. And I don't think anybody on the jury it's just not possible. It's not possible. All you can do is change the time zone, but then it's still the accurate time. You can't manipulate that. Ugh. They showed pictures of the Lexus interior. I'll be honest, I don't think it helped at all with the pictures they showed, but is that surprising? No. Maybe with the defense, they'll have pictures that are helpful, but literally none of the Lexus interior pictures I've found helpful. Exactly. The iPhone can't be wrong. Exactly. Can't be wrong. But they're trying to say, by they, I mean the Commonwealth, that the iPhone can be wrong and the car is wrong. And again, it's like, I agree the car can be wrong because, again, we set that time ourselves. Like, that's not the weird part. The weird part is the phone. So
in the Karen Reed retrial of the century. And there was something that I heard from one of Karen Reed's attorneys, Bob Alessi, when I was up there in Dedham watching this case. And he said, seconds count in this case. And they absolutely do. Each second, as both sides try to establish through some of the digital evidence what happened and when it happened. And when you start thinking about distances and information on John O'Keefe's phone, information that was found in other places, it's important. Each second
What a tie, though.
does count in this case. So today we heard from a witness who was talking about the text stream data on Karen Reed's SUV. This is like, it'd be like the black box, sort
I love how he always has these little squares with a little label underneath. Sometimes they're really funny. In fact, I've screenshotted some that were especially funny, like when he was covering the Lori Vallow, when she decided to like represent herself and stuff. I wonder if I still have those. I'll take a look and see if I can find them because they're really funny.
of from an airplane, right? This is the information that is recorded by Toyota, by Lexus, and it kind of gives you a digital printout of some of the activities that the car was engaged in. And what this does is this creates a timeline. So there's certain things happening with Karen Reed's SUV, and there is a timestamp for all of it. Just like there was a timestamp for all the iPhone data on John O'Keefe's phone that we heard from one of the prosecution's experts. Now we're hearing from another expert talking about the timestamps and the timeline of this SUV. Now, the problem that prosecutors had, or may still have, depending upon your viewpoint of the evidence, is that the timeline from the SUV data doesn't line up with the timeline from John O'Keefe's phone. So we heard about a new concept in court today called clock drifting. This is where you take one timeline and it sort of drifts.
Again, see, I love it. He says clock drifting. Here's the thing. And the other thing is this, not only is this made up and it's the first time anyone's ever heard of it, just to reiterate, they had 3 different names for it and they never discussed, it was never explained where these 3 different things are all the same thing. And they should have explained that because you don't want to ever make assumptions, but they call it clock drifting, clock variance, and clock shifting. And there might have been a 4th thing. I think there was a 4th one actually too.
Over to match up with another timeline. And that's what's happening in this case for prosecutors. This expert taking a look at the data from the SUV, which wasn't matching up with the data from the cell phone, all of a sudden drifts the timeline over to make everything match up in a case where seconds count. So the question that we're left with tonight is, because you have to sort of manipulate some of the data and shift the timeline, can prosecutors prove that Karen Reed ran over John O'Keefe beyond a reasonable doubt? Because that is their burden and continues to be their burden. So is the jury okay? And will they follow what prosecutors are putting out there, which is, listen.
Question, is the jury okay? I want to know, is the jury okay for what they've seen? By the way, I found the screenshots that I was referencing with Lori Vallow. Those are funny. I'll have those ready here in just a second for you guys.
Our timeline makes perfect sense as long as you do a little bit of clock drifting to match them up.
Vinny, that's it. Right there. Let's hear that again. That's literally the problem with this. Ugh.
Ran over John O'Keefe beyond a reasonable doubt, because that is their burden and continues to be their burden. So is the jury okay? And will they follow what prosecutors are putting out there, which is, listen, our timeline makes perfect sense as long as you do a little bit of clock drifting to match them up.
It's insulting, honestly. And that's exactly what they're doing. So let me pull up let me pull up what I was just referencing here. Again, him with his little square and he's always got a label. I think it's hilarious. Let me show you guys. These were from Lori Vallow and they're really funny. Hang on. Okay. So first we have, I just have to unshare, reshare. Oh, awesome. Miss Mojo has been a member for a month. Love it. Love having you. Celebrate. Party Central. Celebrate. What's the song? I guess there's lots of songs about celebrating. Anyway, we love all of our Squirrel Crew friends. So this is just really funny. So he always has these. It's like his little thing, his theme. So has a fool for a client. And then we have, will it be a disaster? Do you guys remember this day? I remember this very well. She had the orange bra strap. Don't know how she got that. But like, dude, has a fool for a client. And these were from months apart because this is from like when she first, I think, said she was going to represent herself. And then this was from right before the trial started. I mean, it's just, I just adore it. I adore the whole thing. He's got like, it's like that. There's there's the cheekiness there, you know? Okay, so now we'll go back to Vinny here. What does clock drifting mean? Make it make sense, Vinny. Help us.
So that was a big part of today's testimony, but there was a lot that happened up in Dedham, and there's someone who was on top of it all. Court TV crime and justice correspondent Matt Johnson joining us live from outside the courthouse.
So Iris says if they all measure the time right, it just has to be overplayed. What do you mean overplayed? No, time doesn't drift. Exactly. I mean, correct. Time doesn't drift. They're inventing this. This is a Brennan trying to gaslight the jury. And he's even trying to gaslight them to say that there's multiple layers to this. He's trying to even gaslight them as in to make them think they're not being gaslit by changing the name. So like, and just in case they're not okay with clock drifting, it's like, well, let's just call it clock variance. Okay, maybe that still seems a little bit too shady for you. Let's just call it clock shifting. You know what I mean? And it's like, pick your poison, right? Because again, those are the three I can remember. I think there was a fourth term, and they've used them all interchangeably.
I guess I left and it got chilly, right? The weather was beautiful when I was up there, Matt. And then I left and now it looks like it's cold again. A lot of important things today. It's expert testimony, but it's the type of testimony that I think prosecutors believe they need to lean into to win this case. And part of that is the DNA evidence.
Overlaid.
DNA evidence was huge, and it's always sunny when you're in town, Vinny. But right now, the prosecution is trying to shine some light on some key evidence, including from these DNA experts. And they're with the company by the name of Bodie. And we heard from them in trial number 1.
So I'll just, we don't need to hear about this. Also, one thing I think was especially interesting, the bit about the hair, right? And it could have belonged to like the niece or the nephew. I just wanted to reiterate for anyone who didn't see us when we covered that, didn't see the coverage of it, right? That I pointed out that it was really interesting because what we had this year that we didn't have last year was we had Hank Brennan introduced with Trooper Buchanan on the stand. You guys remember when he played all those ring videos and he went back from like starting the morning prior and the full day, right? And then the next day. And it was like all these clips of the ring camera footage. And the very first one was from the morning of the 28th. And again, this didn't come in the first trial, and it came in this trial. And I kept thinking, oh my God, this is amazing. If I was the defense, I would totally point this out in closing, because the very first one that was played in that whole series was Karen taking the kids to school. Because I was actually shocked. I was like, oh my God, it's showing the kids. It's not like you could see their faces, but still, I was shocked that they didn't blur the kids out. So like, but you could see them getting in, and they had their backpacks, and like, I remember specifically, I don't know if it was the niece or the nephew, but somebody was like, got in and then got out and then got back in. And it's like, essentially works out really well for the defense that the Commonwealth put that into evidence, because the jury has actually seen the niece and the nephew getting into her car that very day, right? That morning. So to the extent that it's possible that any hair at all could stick to the Lexus during a blizzard, you know, it's just as likely it could have been a hair from the morning. You know what I mean? So, so anyway, that's noteworthy, right? The niece or nephew hair. It's like, it's not just like, oh, she's around them, they live there, or she's visiting. No, it goes beyond that, right? Because I just wanted to say, like, let's all remember that she took them to school that day. And the jury saw the video of it. So, all right. So let's see here. Okay.
This is new stuff in the retrial. Tell us about the Aperture witness.
Right. This is one of the 2 witnesses from the consulting firm now hired by the Commonwealth for their case in chief from Aperture Consulting. So this particular witness was really talking about that 3-point turn that we have heard so much about. Take a look at your screen. So that is the 3-point turn through the Waze app and through the cell phone data that was uncovered in Officer O'Keefe's cell phone. And then that was compared to the extraction report with the SUV. And then that whole clock drifting that you were explaining. The digital analyst with Aperture said that he adjusted the time to match those 2 by 20 to 30 seconds. Listen to this.
When you look at the time from the Lexus clock regarding that backing event, did you do an analysis of John O'Keefe's phone considering the variance that you identified?
Okay, so we don't need to hear this again.
That was fiery at times and much of the afternoon spent on cross, but he was being asked about whether or not he reviewed testimony from this case from Ian Whiffen and trying to mirror that data that was already presented to this jury, and if he kept his particular timeline flexible and if he was asked to do so by the Commonwealth. But a big chunk of the cross-examination was spent attacking his credibility and alleged lying on his resume. Listen to this.
It's a copy of my CV.
Is that a CV you prepared, sir?
It would have been prepared by myself or Aperture, yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the end.
Sorry, it would have been prepared by myself or Aperture, yes.
It says Bachelor of General Science in Mathematics and Business Administration, University of Alabama - Birmingham, Alabama, 2022. Did I read that correct?
Yes, you did.
Are you aware that there's no degree at the University of Alabama, Birmingham, called a Bachelor of General Science in Mathematics and Business Administration?
Yes, I am. And that is one of the errors I've identified.
So you would agree that there's
Just now.
not even
Who didn't identify
a
it?
degree called
You didn't
Bachelor of
identify it. He identified it for you.
General Science in Mathematics and Business Administration offered at the University of Alabama, correct?
Correct. That should be Bachelor of General Studies with minor in Mathematics and Business Administration.
And what you just articulated, you do not possess as you sit here today, correct?
That is correct.
What you possess is an associate's degree, correct?
Correct.
And when did you obtain that associate's degree?
So that would have been 2015.
So Vinny, from his LinkedIn to his cover letters to what's on the website, what's been taken down, there was a lot of focus on his credentials. And this jury was paying close attention. And it was pretty interesting because they were writing a lot of notes during all of that.
Yeah, like the battle of the experts is based upon, how you testify in court, but also like who you are and what.
It's so funny because we were just talking about the battle of the experts thing. So yeah, you're right. Okay. By the way, for anyone who is interested, weasel in Russian. So we got that one here. So speaking of weasel, we got, so laska is how you would say that.
What you've done, what you've accomplished, and what your credentials are. Credentials are a big part of expert testimony. And he apparently had the wrong degree, like the wrong, what they call the degree, but he didn't even get that.
Okay, so I was saying, I don't remember who showed up at AJ. Like, yeah, no, that's not what he did at all. What he was saying, well, okay, so here's how I interpret it, right? Like, essentially, the way it works with the hair is a tricky thing with any case. And so the mitochondrial DNA, that's what they're always, if they can get DNA from the hair, it's the mitochondrial DNA, and that's only going to show the maternal line. That's true for anybody's hair. So whoever's hair is a hair, right? Like the mitochondrial DNA, so anyone on the maternal line can be male, can be female. It's literally anyone on the maternal line. So in other words, that would include, if you're for John O'Keefe, right? That would include Peggy, but it would also include his sister. It would also include his grandmother. It would also include his great grandmother. It would include his niece and nephew, right? Anyone on the maternal side, right? And so it wasn't like trying to implicate her, but he was just literally saying, that's facts. That's facts. That's facts that they're you can't say that it's more likely John's than any of those people. They can't say that. They can only say that it's more likely John's or anyone on the maternal side than, what was it, 95% of the population or whatever statistic they gave. In other words, they're not comparing John to his family members. They're comparing John. It's like saying John, it could be John's or any of the family members on the maternal side. They would all have the same exact likelihood of ratio against whatever the percentage he gave there, 95% of something. So anyone that's saying that he was trying to pin it on Peggy is just completely misinterpreting things, I would say. But yeah, she did. But I remember, and we pointed it out. It bothered me the way she rolled her eyes and shook her head. I think though, she did that when he mentioned it could have been the nephew. She did that when he mentioned the nephew. It wasn't when it was the nephew. That was what it was. It was the nephew. And it was a really blatant eye roll and shaking of the head and all that all AJ said was it could just as likely be the nephew. And that's factually true. That is a factual, that's not even, that's a fact that yes, it's just as likely. So why isn't she told to do that? Well, in some courts, they would say something. And honestly, the defense could say something to Judge Bev and be like, can you tell her not? I mean, a good way to handle it, right, if you're dealing with a victim's family member like that, would be for Judge Bev to address the gallery as a whole. Now, you know, she addressed the jury the other day, but not the gallery, right? But to address the gallery and to say something like that. But she hasn't done that we've heard, you know. But like if it keeps happening, they could ask her to say something politely. It should come from Judge Bev. But I don't think I probably need to even explain why potentially the defense hasn't done that, right? It's a sensitive issue, right? With any victim's family member, it's a sensitive issue, but especially in this case, considering how divisive, what's the way to say it? I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of animosity, right? Towards, they have well, it's not even a secret, right? That they've got a lot of animosity towards Karen, right? And so I don't know. It's just, you have to be, it's a delicate issue. Typically, I mean, really, you would hope that the judge would see that and without being asked by the defense would say something again and put it in the thing of like to the whole gallery, right? And that would include Peggy. You would hope that she would automatically, you know, that's what one could hope for. And sometimes that, I mean, that happens oftentimes, right? If the judge sees something like that, right, they will say something. Sometimes attorneys have to ask, but other times the judges will notice it and just say something. So I don't know. She shouldn't be doing that though. I mean, but yeah, it was in reference to the nephew being mentioned. That I don't know, Meg. If Paul got moved, I have no idea.
Degree.
Me too.
He's still working on it. He said that he's been working on it for the past 17 years and that it was an oversight.
Good one.
Okay. Hey, any reaction after court, Matt?
Okay, so you know we try to talk to Karen Reed or her defense team each and every day. Of course, all the attorneys, rather, they're under a gag order, so it's only Miss Reed that's able to speak occasionally. Last week, it was
did she say something?
David Yannetti, though, who said that there would be no comment, and we kind of imagined that there wasn't going to be any comment moving forward until they're in their own case, because he said so, no comment, because the state's case is wrapping up and quickly. Well, after court today, Karen Reed had this to say.
Wow.
Reaction to today's testimony?
Yeah, my reaction is that Attorney Brennan represented to this court and to us just
This would have been from yesterday, day before.
last week that he was surprised to get a report on May 8th. That was only shared with us on May 11th. And now we find out from this witness that Attorney Brennan knew this report was coming the whole time. That's the definition of an ambush. That's what just happened. That's my only comment.
Not only is it an ambush, though, again, it goes beyond that because he elicited false testimony from that witness, and that he should get in trouble with the bar for that. I mean, okay, let me put it this way. He should get reported to the bar, and whether or not something else happens, right, that would be up to the bar. But in other words, eliciting false testimony from a witness, I can pull it up if you guys want to see the rule, but like that is a violation of the ABA rules. So.
Credentials. Anything on credentials at all?
Yeah, it's called fraudulent. It's fraudulent. It's a lie.
Will you be able to challenge the conclusion?
Yes.
Things are really.
I mean, also now, given what happened on Recross, also that witness did commit. I mean, again, he's not going to get charged with perjury, but technically, yeah. I mean, it looked like. I mean, you know, he flat out said that he didn't ever put that on a CV for anything with a trial or with court, and he did. But a bigger deal to me is Hank Brennan eliciting false testimony. Much bigger deal.
Heating up this week. We're in the beginning of week 5. It's going to be a shorter week.
I mean, again, he's representing the government here, right? In this case, you're not. The rules are the same whether you're working, whether you're a defense attorney or whether you're, you know, on the prosecution. Like regardless, it's like if you're an attorney, the ABA rules apply the same to attorneys. You know, there's certain specific things that apply. That would only apply to the government, right? Just because if it's a criminal trial, just certain things. But regardless, in terms of not eliciting false testimony, that's equal across the board. But just in terms of like, it's just even more disturbing. And the ABA, the Bar Association would also find it more disturbing if it comes from somebody who's representing the government, prosecuting a murder trial for someone to spend life in prison.
The Commonwealth could actually rest their case in chief as early as this Thursday, possibly after the holiday. And we're expecting them to call more witnesses, the neurologist, and then the other witness with Aperture that's going to be the brand new, never testified before.
Oh, I forgot about the neurosurgeon dude. That's in their case in chief. Hold on, let me back it up. I forgot about that. I mean, I remembered him being a witness, but I guess I forgot that he might be in their case in chief.
This Thursday, possibly after the holiday. Clean up this week. We're in the beginning of week 5. It's going to be a shorter week, but the Commonwealth could actually rest their case in chief as early as this Thursday, possibly after the holiday. And we're expecting them to call more witnesses, the neurologist, and then the other witness with Aperture that's going to be the brand new, never testified before for this trial, the crash reconstructionist. And so we are really laying down that groundwork of what's going to be the battle of the experts in this trial, Vinny.
All right, Matt.
Huh. See, I thought the neurosurgeon, Isaac Wolf. Let me do a little search because I can actually keep playing this, but let me explain to you what I'm thinking. Because I was thinking he was for rebuttal. I'm going to double check on that because that really changes the timeline.
Matt Johnson in Dedham, where it's getting dark and it's very chilly tonight. Thanks so much, Matt. All right, let's bring in our think tank. Joining us tonight, what credentials these folks have. Criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor. He was the MVP of the Mets last season. You may have seen him on the ball field. Al Wunsch III. Also with us, criminal defense attorney Darnell Crossland, who came in second in the Masters this year. And family law attorney Jennifer Brandt. You may recognize her from Miss Universe. She actually won this year. The credentials are amazing on our think tank tonight. Al, yes. But apparently the expert for the prosecution puffed his degree a little bit, like by 2 years.
We're calling it stolen scholar. Okay. I mean, you see this thing with stolen valor. This is stolen scholar, where you put things on your resume that actually didn't happen. See, it's good. Darnell's resume, if you ever take a look at it, with regards to his situation, he just says, I went to school. Okay. So he leaves it perfectly broad. So this way here, you can never question or have him try to qualify that. Okay. But in this case, to put something like that, what a mistake that is. How no one took a look at that, how no one took a look at that situation with regards to his employment is just baffling to me. I mean, there's a big difference between an associate's degree and a bachelor's degree when you are trying to qualify as an expert. It's an embarrassment. It's going to look bad to the state, the Commonwealth. It's going to look bad to them. It's a mess. Anytime you have his qualifications, and I thought he was doing a good job. His explanation on clock drifting, which is
we're going to get to that. We're going to get to all that explanation.
Okay, I just wanted to follow up on. So I just double checked on this, looking at the filings there. So Isaac Wolf is the neurosurgeon that I was thinking was maybe going to be for rebuttal. It doesn't. It looks like he is for their case in chief. That's interesting. And they could also still call Dr. Stonebridge. Now, here's why this matters, because they're going to still go through Christina Hanley tomorrow, and it's going to take forever because of how between her and Lolly. I mean, who knows how long it's going to take? Okay, 2 hours. I don't know. But basically, what you don't want to do if you're the Commonwealth is have your star witness, quote unquote, on the stand and have to break over the long weekend, the long break. You don't even want to do it over a weekend if you can help it, but especially not when you have a long break. So, and I had forgotten about the neurosurgeon. Again, I was thinking the neurosurgeon was going to be for rebuttal, but so what they might do is this. Christina Hanley, they can do that, could draw out all the way through lunch or whatever, right? And then after lunch, potentially maybe they call Dr. Stonebridge, and then maybe she goes through the end of the day. And then on Thursday, the Hoff day, maybe that would be the neurosurgeon dude. Now, I would say if you got him on the stand, would that be the end of the world if you end up breaking with him on the stand? Probably not. Depends on where you're at in the testimony. But in other words, I could see them finishing out this week with Christina Hanley and then Dr. Stonebridge and Dr. Wolf, and not getting to Judge Welcher until next week. Damn it. I was so excited though to see what will ensue, with that. That's a bummer. I really hope they don't call. I will say to that end, they weren't going to call Dr. Squirty Bello, right? They were going to use Dr. Stonebridge and Dr. Wolf, Isaac Wolf, instead of her, but they called her. So maybe that means they won't call. They're going to bring in their experts. They've already paid for them. So maybe it's just that they won't call Dr. Stonebridge. I don't know. I'm still hopeful that we'll get to Judge Welcher before the week is out. That's my hope. But we shall see. We shall see. Kidsman, welcome. Happy to see you, my friend.
But let's
Okay.
just focus now on who this guy is.
We are in week 5. We are wrapping up week 5 here as soon as we finish the half day on Thursday.
Now, when you hire an expert, do you take them at their word, or do you dig into their background? I mean, if you're hiring an expert, do you trust their CV or their resume that they have?
Well, it's very interesting because anybody that you call to the stand, you automatically have to prepare yourself for the cross-examination. Whether it's a lay witness or expert witness, so you have to look at things that may hurt you. And when it comes to expert, just like if it was a lay witness that had a criminal record, we want to get that out. Well, you have an expert, you have to say to yourself, if there's an issue such as he's 17 years trying to earn this degree,
well,
he has
on his resume, he had the degree though. On his resume, he had it. So if you're hiring one, is it incumbent upon you, or in this case, the prosecution, to vet your own expert, or do you kind of take them at their word when you're hiring a firm?
Well, normally you take them at their word, but I think what we've
Randall saying thank you to the, what is that? Oak trees, right? What are you saying? Thank you to oak trees?
seen over the years, and we're seeing here now, you have to do a little bit of examination yourself, such as, so when did you graduate, or tell me a little bit about the school, because they're going to get into this. You know, you have to just kind of tweak that a little bit. Now, if they lie to you, just like Karen Reed did on the steps just now, I gave her a lot of credit for defining what's trial by ambush. If they lie to you, you're going to get ambushed on that cross-examination, and you're going to have to live with that. So I think that the prosecution was struck a blow today. The worst they could do is try to defend this situation now, because you can't defend your expert's credentials. That's gone. You could defend their testimony, such as did they get paid for their testimony, all of that. But you can't defend them lying on their CV. So that was a very, very strong blow to the prosecution.
It's insanity to me. I mean, this is something that could completely undermine his entire career. Jennifer Brandt, let me ask you, if he can not tell the truth about his qualifications and his education, can the jury trust him beyond a reasonable doubt for the conclusions that he comes to?
Absolutely not, Vinny. And that's the issue here, that you can't trust this guy at all. If he can't even get his own resume straight and be truthful with regard to his credentials, then how can you believe anything that comes out of his mouth? I think the prosecution did themselves a huge disservice by having this witness on the stand and having this line of testimony whereby he just totally seemed to have lied or didn't check his own resume, didn't check his own credentials. I mean, it's just incredible to believe that somebody would get up there as a so-called expert and just not even be truthful with regard to his own credentials. So I don't think the jury could believe one word that comes out of his mouth, no matter how talented he is, no matter, how good of a job he really did in his report. How can you even be sure, because he lied about where he went to school, what degree he got, and so on and so forth. So I just think it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable that he was actually able to testify as an expert, but I don't think it was incumbent on the prosecution to check his credentials. Typically, we don't. Typically, we believe and take our experts at their word and don't go into whether or not they actually graduated from school or got a bachelor's degree or an associate's degree. It's not something that I would think about necessarily checking, but after this, I will for sure.
Yeah. And the bottom line is, you could have.
The thing is, and this is literally what he's saying. I mean, this is the point everybody's been saying, right? That you don't have to have those degrees to mean that you are qualified or what have you, right? But here's what I will say, and I don't know this to be the case, but there's a lot of jobs. There's a lot of jobs that a requirement is to have a bachelor's degree. So to the extent that Aperture required that, right, and he lied about it, I mean, that could be a problem. Like just in terms of the ways that it could matter, right? But also, the other thing is, degree or no degree, he mixed up the bits and the bytes, and he made a number of other errors as well. And I think Alessi actually pointed that out in a way that was really kind of snarky. That was brilliant too. On one of the moments, right, where it's like, you've been pursuing a bachelor's degree for 17 years, and yet you still can't get bits and bytes straight, or something. He said it in a way that was not like that, right? But anyway, that was I feel like that was the point of one of his questions there. Yeah, and also for Kat, so to say thank you, Trees, you'd say spasiba duravya would be what you're looking for there. So, but yeah, the point that the fact that he lied, regardless of any of that, the fact that he lied is going to, that's the whole point, right? The jury is supposed to judge witness credibility, and they can choose to disregard everything, everything or nothing or part of what a witness says. So
that degree and then have real life experience and be an expert. But the question that you didn't tell the truth about it.
And the whole thing, I mean, the thing is like the real clincher was when Alessi came in on recross with that fucking federal case where he put on the
CV that he had the degree and he didn't say currently pursuing, right? And it was the degree that doesn't exist. It's like, that was the real clench. I mean, that right there, it's like, if he wasn't, I mean, I think he was probably done already, but it's like, dude, you just said that. In other words, Brennan tried to soften the blow by being like, well, you never actually like lied in the court. You never put it. And it's like, well, actually you did. So there you go.
That's the problem. It comes back to credibility. You know, same thing happened in the Michael Peterson. The staircase guy is free because an expert was caught lying in one of his cases. So all of his cases became an absolute mess. Great news. Al Darnell, Jennifer Brandt staying with us this hour. When we
I think he's talking about Henry Lee there.
come back, we're going to talk about that clock drifting testimony of this expert. Plus, coming up next hour.
By the way, I intend to cover that case at some point, the Michael Peterson case. That's the North Carolina case. So Kat Randall says, Bilber Pajolovic, Belka. That's welcome squirrels. Actually, you would want Belky for the plural, but yeah, that's I love it. I also love, that's another saying I love is how they say welcome. Dobro Pajolovic means welcome.
Tonight on Vinnie Politan Investigates, the retrial of the century continues in Dedham, Massachusetts, and we take a closer look at the cause and manner of death with our own unbiased expert. What do John O'Keefe...
We don't need the preview. We're going to just skip ahead.
The other side of all of that. Vinnie Politan Investigates tonight, 9/8 Central, only on CourtTV. What happened that night?
To adjust one clock to the other, we can do that. And doing that, we've identified that the variance is between 21 and 29 seconds. So we would need to adjust the Lexus clock forward by 21 to 29 seconds to synchronize.
I don't like this at all. No, this is just every time you say it just doesn't, it's never going to sit right. Adjust the clock for, I mean, dude.
It with the iPhone data.
All right, that's a very important expert for the prosecution, right? Shanon Burgess. And what he's talking about is this 3-point turn. This is the 3-point turn that is done before the alleged impact of Karen Reed's SUV, like way before. As John and Karen are in the SUV driving to the Alberts' home, they pass the street that they're supposed to turn on, and then they do this 3-point turn and then come back and make the right to go down Fairview. So he's using that 3-point turn as sort of the way to sync up the clocks from the iPhone and the clock from the Lexus SUV. Take a listen to how much of a variance there is here.
When you looked at the time from the Lexus clock regarding that backing event, did you do an analysis of John O'Keefe's phone considering the variance that you identified?
Yes, I did. So I applied the same variance to that second take stream event. The time of that event with the clock variance adjusted is 12:32:04 to between 12:32:04 and 12:32:12.
Okay, let me lay this out for you graphically so you understand it. What you're looking at is the two different sets of times. The ones in white are from the phone. The ones in yellow are from the text stream data.
This is actually really helpful. I'm going to take a screenshot of this. This is really helpful. So let me do this. I'm going to turn these off. You guys, thank you, Vinny and crew, for making this. Thank you. I mean, here we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play it so that it takes the text off the top, and I'll screenshot it.
In white are from the phone. The ones in yellow are from the text stream data. That is from the Lexus, from Karen Reed's SUV. So if you go in chronological order, initially, this is what all the times are. 12.
Read the subtitles anyway, but this is helpful.
22:14 is the start of the health event where John O'Keefe is allegedly climbing flights of stairs. Whiffen said he's actually driving up the street on his way to Brian Albert's home. Then you've got a 12:23:38. That's when the car says the 3-point turn happens. But then you move ahead, and it's 12:23:59 to 12:24:07, according to the phone. That's when the 3-point turn happens. Then after that, you have the end of the health event, the 3 flights that are climbed after the 3-point turn. Then at 12:31:43, according to the Lexus, that's when the car is backing up. That's when John O'Keefe is struck. But according to the phone data, at 12:31:56 is the start of John O'Keefe's phone moving 36 steps. So he's like walking somewhere. Then the phone is unlocked with his face at 12:32:04. 12:32:09, the phone locks for the last time. And then at 12:32:16, he stops walking, or the phone stops moving. So they don't line up. So now as we make the adjustment, I want you to keep your eyes on what is in yellow so you can see the way this expert uses clock drifting to line them up. Now everything is in sync. After you change the times, everything is now perfectly in sync. The 3-point turn is the same at the Lexus data as it is in the phone, and the end of the backup maneuvering is back in sync with everything within the window of time. And it's all because they changed the time on the SUV. So let's bring back in our think tank to see what they have to
I just took another screenshot. I can put those in the Discord too. That's helpful to have the visual.
say about all of this. Al wants to throw Darnell Crossland and Jennifer Brandt. Al, is this normal? Is a jury going to say, sure, if your data doesn't line up,
great question, Benny.
You can just shift it.
I mean, you can see what he thinks, right? Yeah. Wow, man.
For Brandt. Al, is this normal? Is a jury going to say, sure, if your data doesn't line up, you can just shift it?
Well, first of all, clock drifting is not as bizarre as it may seem. People are hearing this for the first time, but how many of us have watched these TV shows or movies that synchronize your watches? Okay, that's because this is all a byproduct of actually Einstein's theory of relativity. Relativity gives us a gravitation.
Synchronize your watches. That's when people are dealing with watches, like old school watches that go tick, 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 which I don't think anybody, I mean, maybe some people have them. Like, what movies is he talking about? Like, yeah, you have to synchronize your watches if you're dealing with like the tick, tick, ticky kind, because you can set those to whatever time you want, just like you can with a car.
Time dilation. Okay, and as a result of that, all clocks are subject to this type of drift. And two clocks, if you put them next to each other, will not look like they're doing it at the same time, even if you're looking at them together, based on a number of things, temperature, environment. There's so many different things going on with regards to that the time drift thing it's a scientifically accepted theory, and it happens. And like I said before, what I would be saying if I'm the prosecution, hey folks, remember, synchronize your watches. That's why we do that.
Yeah, darn.
And if I'm on the jury, I'm like, doesn't apply here. Stop feeding me bullshit. Like, dude.
Now, but what I recall about synchronizing our watches was in the pre-digital
Yes, Vinny, thank you.
age. Like the technology exists where like my car changes time by itself. It sets the clock by itself. It leaps forward. It goes backwards. It does. It's not like I got to spin it like back in the old days.
Wait, his car does that? Hold on. Is that what he's saying? Does his car do that? I didn't know if anybody's car did that.
This was in the pre-digital age. Like the technology exists where like my car changes time by itself. It sets the clock by itself. It leaps forward. It goes backwards. It does. It's not like I got to spin it like back in the old days. Do you think the jury will accept this clock drifting?
No, I think we're on a level playing field now. So even my Ford Escape syncs just like your Rolls Royce because it's satellite. So the satellites kind of feed these devices. Your iPhone, my iPhone right now are on the same time length. And so what you don't want to do is create a trial within a trial. And so I think
I'm going to back this up, but I'm just reading what Kit Smith said. So the one, in terms of the one that he brought up on recross, is that what you're referencing, Kit Smith? On that one, it said, the only one that said in progress or something like that was the CV that he attached to something. Well, it was a filing right at the beginning of this live stream, actually. But in terms of the one that he brought in on recross, that did not say currently in progress or expected date of completion, but it did put the year. But it was still weaselly because it didn't say, you know, and you know this, kids, you're supposed to say it's in progress, but it was also a degree that didn't exist. Let me show you guys what it looks like. Because I cropped these. Let me show you all, and I can put them in the Discord as well. Hang on here. Okay. So it's much easier actually to see it this way probably for you guys. Okay, so here we have this. So see, now it's nice and clean looking, right? There we go. And you can make it bigger. That's what she said. And then the next one, there we go. And I can put these in the Discord. So, I'm still trying to figure out how let's see here. Right, the yellow. What's so funny is remember how Brennan said that John's phone always ran fast. John's phone always ran fast, as if the car was correct, but John's phone was off. I'm just backing up maneuver. I'm still trying to figure out. Extreme event. Hold on, let me go back to the other one. I'm still trying. It still doesn't. Oh, okay. So I see the end of backing up maneuver here at 12:31:43, and then if you switch it with the time drift situation. And then you give it that range. I see. I'll be honest, it still, to me, doesn't solve the problem for the Commonwealth for numerous reasons. Because even if the jury buys all this, when you look at the range, if you say, okay, just to be fair, right? If it's within that range, right? Couldn't it then, the end of backing up maneuver could still be before the start of the health events where he's still alive? That's one thing, but none of this still solves the problem with the 12:36 timestamp, and I don't know what they're going to do about that. Okay, let me see what you guys are saying in the chat here. Yep. It's upsetting. It's very upsetting. Agree with you guys. Yep, I know, y'all. I know you guys. You're probably like hearing me, and you're like, you're preaching to the choir. I mean, and the thing is the jury knows this. Like the jury's, this is all common sense. That's why it's so offensive with the Commonwealth trying to say this, right? About the whole thing with the timing, because it's offensive. Even if they had, which we've heard it's a young jury, even if it was not a young jury, I don't care what age a person is on that jury. They're all going to be like, we're not in the 1800s anymore. Like this is just not, no one's going to buy it, right? Mm-hmm. How the hell does a phone run fast? Yeah, I know, right? It's disgusting to even say it. The fact that I mean, of all of the forked tongue things he's said, right? That literally, I don't care who it is, no one can buy it. Like that might even take the cake. I mean, find somebody on this planet who will say an iPhone can run fast. It won't happen. It will not. It's not possible. It's just. Oh, God. Okay, let's go back, though. So I'll put those in the Discord as well. I mean, I think it helps to have the visual, because what I'm seeing even with this visual is like, well, if you look at the visual, and even if you give them all the benefits of the doubt, does that visual really still, when you go with that window, is that enough for them? And to me, it looks like the answer is no. So, and that's even if you believe everything and go with all of that and say it's like, and that's how you have to look at it, right? It's like, if you assume that there's somebody on the jury who's like buying everything the Commonwealth is saying, like, yeah, this dude makes sense. He's credible. Woo, yeah. But then they look at that window and it's like, oh, well, hold on. The timeline still doesn't work. You see what I mean? That's how you want to assess it, right? Okay. So, because if you do all that and the timeline still, if you give them every benefit of the doubt and you go with all their drifting and the timeline still doesn't work, then there's,
And it happens. And like I said before, what I would be saying if I'm
no hope unless they just want to convict her without evidence. You know what I mean?
If I'm the prosecution, hey folks, remember, synchronize your watches. That's why we do that.
Yeah, Darnell, but what I recall about synchronizing our watches was in the pre-digital age, like that the technology exists where like my car changes time by itself. It sets the clock by itself. It leaps forward, it goes backwards. It's not like I got to spin it like back in the old days. Do you think the jury will accept this clock drifting?
No, I think we're on a level playing field now. So even my Ford Escape syncs just like your Rolls Royce because it's satellite. So the satellites kind of feed these devices. Your iPhone, my iPhone right now are on the same time length. And so what you don't want to do is create a trial within a trial. And so I think if we have to assume that they have to prove this case beyond a reasonable.
I have to push back on that. I love a good trial within a trial. I mean, not just y'all know. It's just give me all the trials within a trial. I understand that they don't want that, those who are trying the case, but I want that personally. Just,
Doubt. As we see in the Diddy case, if there's a reasonable explanation that goes to the left and a reasonable that goes to the right, the defense wins. Because if there's ever a tie, the defense wins. So if you have to now start explaining Al's theory of Newton's law or whatever he just said, then we're just going to go with the defense because no one wants to hear that stuff. So that's reasonable doubt right there, Professor Wunsch.
Jennifer.
Well, I don't believe the clock drifting because I don't know that this guy can even get his resume straight. So again, we're talking about someone who couldn't even get his credentials right. And now he's talking about clocks not lining up. I agree with Darnell. We all have clocks that are synced. This is not a human error. We're not setting clocks anymore. So I don't know why there would be a discrepancy in digital clocks that are set by satellite.
The dude up in the top right is really upset about this.
That are set to be all the same time. So I don't think that,
right?
Well, Al has his own theories, but he's,
It's not my own theory. It's Einstein's theory. I hate to tell you. I know it's
Einstein's theory, but Einstein
arguing with Einstein, but it's just not applicable here, dude.
He did not have a digital clock at the time. He was winding up the clocks and setting them himself. So I don't think we
take
can
a
use
look at your
Einstein's
phone
theory
right
here.
now. Take your phone and put it up against your watch, and the two times will be different. Okay, they'll be off by a couple
Maybe
of
yours,
seconds at
Al.
least.
Maybe yours.
No, that's just the way. That's the way you and atomic clocks. Everything down the line. It's just the way it's designed. This whole subject is accepted science. It's not some sort of voodoo thing. It actually comes into play. Now, whether it's that much time, that's another question. Okay, that's another question. If it could be that much,
I mean, if that were true, every single fucking murder conviction where they brought in Celebrate data, where there's a timestamp, and the timestamp is from the phone, and it has an hour, a minute, seconds, and milliseconds, and those timestamps are all wrong. Not even just, never mind murder trials. It's relied upon for everything. I don't know, whatever. This is dumb.
You're talking about, if you're talking about a couple of seconds, that might be a little more plausible. But nonetheless, this is an accepted standard. It's an accepted theory. And we've just never heard of it because they're using clock drifting. But if you go synchronization.
I tend to set my clocks 12 minutes ahead. For clocks, I can set microwave, oven, my car. I set them 12 minutes ahead.
I think people would understand that better.
Okay.
Hey, Vinny, these two clocks are the same.
I think we need to check Al's resume.
The iPhone
Look at this.
And the desk clock are both the same. They're both saying 8:33. So Al's little stopwatch in his pocket needs to catch up to time.
Okay. We'll synchronize our clocks during the commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk about DNA on the taillight.
Now, sir, in your comparison analysis between.
You can skip through this. Her hair looks nice.
A lot of zeros after that number. So they're pretty positive that John O'Keefe's DNA is on there. That's huge. Mm-hmm. Now, another part of the DNA in this case that is significant for prosecutors and the defense is other people, particularly Trooper Michael Proctor and Yuri Buchanek from the Massachusetts State Police, and whether or not their DNA is on the taillight region or any of the pieces. Take a listen.
Now, in your comparison analysis between the tail.
I wonder if they'll address the thing with Peggy and the hair situation. Hairgate.
For Proctor and Buchanek, you heard 46 million, 76,000, I believe, for Proctor were the numbers there. And then here focusing on whose DNA you didn't have to compare it to. Let's bring back in our think tank, Al Wunsch III, Darnell Crossland, Jennifer Brandt. Jennifer, what are your thoughts here? Is this a problem for prosecutors that they didn't have DNA samples from Brian Albert, Brian Higgins, and former Chief Berkowitz?
I mean, I think it's a problem just because the defense is going to say, well, you didn't test all these other people that were allegedly at the scene. So
I'm going to skip ahead. I'm just curious if they do bring up anything about Peggy with the hair.
The need to try to synthesize that and to get that as an understanding in front.
Somebody just rear the vehicle. He just apparates out of thin air.
Okay, apparitions. Oh yeah, that dude.
go after the former chief and say that he had.
I don't know if they're going to bring it up.
Hey, it's simple. It's you have a known and you test unknowns. So the known you can't change. All right. And so the known is going to be O'Keefe. That's the known. So you're going to be looking towards all the unknowns that are relevant. You can't test all the unknowns in the universe, but you're going to look at all the relevant unknowns. And now Berkowitz is handling this stuff. And the first trial raised some question of whether, in fact, they were doing some things that were unscrupulous. Then they're going to have a problem if they don't explain it. And so I think that's going to be the challenge, not to go too deeply into a space you don't need to, but you're going to have to explain this to the jury because they're going to be wondering, well, why you didn't test those guys?
All right, we're going to go around the horn. Just tell me from your perspective, based on this DNA and the clock drifting, who had a better day? One word, prosecution or defense? Al.
Both.
Right? Of course. Darnell.
The defense, for sure.
And Jennifer.
The defense.
All right. Al Wunsch, Darnell Cross, and Jennifer Brandt. Thank you all so much. We'll see you again really, really soon. When we come
That plaid tie. What is
back, I will reveal something else you need to know tonight. Plus,
What
coming
do you need to know, Benny? What is he doing?
Now, let's look at the other.
How silly. He's out there out in the field.
This trial day 6 for Diddy in the sex trafficking trial. CourtTV legal correspondent Kelly Craft is in New York City and has the latest for us.
Is that what we need to know? I'm not worried about that. That's a whole. I'm not even up on that. I mean, I have no idea. Okay. Let's not end it on his face though. Let's just back this up here. Yeah, so that'll be it, guys, on this one, I believe. Yeah, they do. That's a good point, Kidsmits. And I believe that this did come out at some point. This did come out already in this trial. It did come out that there should be a sensor or something like that on the Lexus, like a sound, right? I believe. Or was it just that there's a backup camera? But it didn't have automatic braking, which, for example, like my mom just got a new Prius, and the new Priuses have they automatically brake when there's something behind you, which is wild. This didn't have that, and also the backup camera. Again, just thinking along the same lines, backup camera doesn't record it. It doesn't record any footage. So I'm trying. Does anybody remember something? Was it a sensor? Fuck, I'm gonna have to look that up. I'm trying to remember if it was that if evidence came in that there was a sensor that would beep, or if it was just that there is a I'm trying to fucking remember, and now I can't remember. Gosh darn it. I bet somebody in the chat will remember though, for sure. I mean, that's another good point, Meg. I hadn't even thought of that. Wouldn't John O'Keefe have seen her coming at him at 24 miles an hour? Like, she would have some room to get going that fast. Right. I mean, because the Commonwealth is saying 70 feet that she traveled, which, by the way, apparently would put her in the backyard. So I don't know how they're going to deal with that. That'll be a Judd Welcher thing. But yeah, that's a great point. He would have gotten out of the way. I mean, even on top, 100%, Meg. 100%. That's a great point. I hadn't even thought of that. That's a great point. You know who would probably remember if I can't find the answer specifically, Need Some Z's, I think would probably remember specifically whether or not any type of sensor was mentioned in trial. I mean, I'm sure she's not the only person in the Squirrel Crew, but just she tends to be like an encyclopedia with this. So I totally agree with what Kidsmits is saying here, that in a way, this would have been way easier for the Commonwealth to win if there wasn't so much tech involved. All the tech could absolutely, if they could just go with, she said, I hit him 3 times. She hated him, angry voicemails, and just go off of that. Right. Totally. I couldn't agree more. I mean, the 1236 timestamp, get me past that. Good luck, Commonwealth. 100%. Yeah. It's created most of their issues either by contradicting things witnesses say. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, definitely. It all contradicts us. Everything's all contradicting, So like the less facts, data, and science, the better it would have been for the Commonwealth. So I will make a note, guys. I'll make a note to the next time we have which will be soon here, to ask the chat about, and I'll also try to see if I can look it up, about anything with a sensor. And again, also the backup camera. We know that there was one, but just in terms of, I can't remember what the jury heard this trial. So I'll make a note for both of those, sensor or backup camera, if the jury heard it this trial. So that we can follow up on that. But anyway, so, but you guys are awesome. I love y'all. Squirrel Crew's the best. We will be back here shortly. Again, fingers crossed, we'll hear from Judd Welcher. Although, I mean, it'll be interesting to hear what the neurosurgeon says, right? Where he was one of the ones that the defense had a motion to eliminate, trying to, I think they wanted to voir dire him, maybe keep him out or exclude his testimony. I think they wanted to exclude his testimony, and then the compromise would have been a voir dire. But anyway, so we'll see what happens, and we'll also be seeing Christina Hanley's infamous chalk, right? At this point, we've all been waiting with bated breath for. So, but that'll be it for this one, guys. I love you guys. Y'all are the best. Uvidimsia, as we would say in Russian, which means see you late. We all say see you later. Uvidimsia. And other than that, squirrel out.